won't wait your emergency.
This is Alex Murdaugh at 4147 Moselle Road. I need the police to answer immediately. My wife and child got badly.
Well, good morning, you guys. I'm Franky, and this is the Think Tank. So another day for the Murdaugh trials, starting in about a little bit over 10 minutes. But I did promise that we would take a look at these babies again. And yeah, let's take a boo while we're waiting. Okay, here we are. So you guys ready for another day of trial? I'm very interested in what is this thing? I'm trying to find them for you. There we go. So this is a different view. This can sound. What do you think? So as soon as court starts, we'll be ready. So again, this is a top view. I don't know if I like that so much. What do you guys think? Good morning, Shauna. So these are mama and babies. The top side, I don't think I like it as much though. Let's go back. Let's see here. There we are. Mama and babies. Okay, and I will keep watching for court. Did you have a good evening? I'm good, thank you, friend. How about yourself? Yeah, funny thing about the pits. As it turns out, she was there almost all day. And I just kept forgetting to refresh. If I had refreshed, we would have seen Mama was there. So no negligent parents. Just Oh, it's just something else kind of cute. Check this one out, guys. Oh my goodness. Looks like there's people watching as well, but oh my word. Where are they? Oh, I need my glasses on. My problem is. Hello, Dandy. Good morning, friend. Okay, there we are. Oh, this was hilarious. Not how much love panda bears. I know, right? I was so going to report them. You see that? It just threw the baby right off. Oh my god. Look at that. Oh god. I'm starting to point. Oh my god. I centered. Oh my goodness. Okay. That sounds awesome, Shauna. What happened to your phone? Oh my goodness gracious. Oh, did it? No. It's still pitch black out here. I don't know what's going on outside. So they're still looking at the emblem. So nothing has happened yet. Aren't those pandas adorable? Nope, you're absolutely right, Shauna. Aren't they adorable? Looks like it's raining by your place. Oh my God, I so would. But I heard they're mean. They're so cute, but they're supposed to be mean. Looks like it's raining hard by you. What? Is this what you guys want? Come sit down. Come sit down. Oh, yeah, koalas. Oh, I bet they were tragic for them. Oh. Yeah. $9:32, people. Still looking at the emblem. They're getting drenched. So there is a way to tell the difference between the mama and the papa. Let's see here. The mama's got freckles on her head, and the papa's got like a dark tip on his let's see here, where are we timing out? There we go. Yeah, but you can't tell right now about the dark tail feathers because they're so dirty right now. Oh, I bet it was gut-wrenching. Oh, yeah, break my heart. So I've got 3 views of that national park now. I've got 2 for these eagles here, and then there's another eagle's nest on the other side of the lake that I've got. So we can check on that one later too. They gave me full permission to use their live cams. Which is very nice of them. Kisachi National Forest, is that how you say that? Kisachi, I don't know, I can't pronounce it properly. Kisachi National Forest. But it gives their names and everything right up top there. No, I don't have an exact location for them. I see that. Yeah, super rainy. Yeah, they're getting soaked. Mom, make the rain stop. A little bit of a late start for court. Not lots, but a little bit. The other nest is Lewis and Anna. They're getting just as drenched over across the lake there. Recording session.
First, I want to address the ruling yesterday overruling the objection by the defense to the state's question of the witness on redirect as to whether he was aware of certain things that had occurred earlier on June 7th involving Mr. Murdaugh or Murdaugh. In the questioning, cross-examination of the witness by Mr. Griffin, the witness was asked whether he could think of any reason, the gist of it, if he could think of any reason possible why Mr. Murdaugh would commit the crimes he's accused of committing. That, in effect, turned the cross-examination of that witness from dealing with the specific issues in the case to having that witness testify as a character witness for Mr. Murdaugh. Among his other areas of inquiry was his being a loving father, great provider, financially secure, things of that nature, all indicating an opinion by that witness as to the good character of the defendant, either through direct statements or circumstantially through the evidence that was adduced from that witness. In the court's view, that opened the door for the state to respond by asking questions, as the state did. Hence, the court overruled the objections. In addition to all of that, the objection was totally inappropriate. As the court laid out and reviewed with the parties early in the trial, that objection should be made and the legal basis stated. An objection of totally inappropriate is, in the words of Judge Joe Anderson, in effect, no objection at all. That's not a legal basis for an objection. That summarizes the basis for the court's ruling on that issue as to those questions yesterday. And that character type evidence was not only sought by from Mr. Gibson, but also, was it Loving? But also Mr. Loving. And none of that really implicated Rule 404, 404B. One, it opened the door. Number two, it's 404A type reputation, questioning that the state had a right to respond to per the rules. And thirdly, it addressed an issue raised in the case by the defense. The defense in the case has primarily been the defendant has such a great character that he could not possibly have committed these offenses. That's been a general thread from opening statement throughout. In addition, the defense introduced through that witness, which was also introduced through other testimony in the case by the defendant, that the boating case was a reason for the murders to have occurred. And by the defense inquiring of the witness yesterday as to his knowledge and belief concerning, or his knowledge concerning the boating case, that likewise opened the door for the state to address that issue. That's the basis for the court's ruling as to opening the door, introducing the boating case, and reputation type evidence that the state had a right to respond. Under Rule 403, yet to be addressed by the court is Rule 404 issues. And those issues will, to some degree, have to be addressed in camera. And I'm wondering if the state has other witnesses to testify as to other things, since we have the jury here ready to go, prior to addressing any other.
Well, we do have first of all, we do have a Snapchat custodian who has flown in that we need to get in so that person can make the flight. Based on how things ended yesterday, I was prepared this morning. We were planning on going forward with some of the witnesses from the law firm, and that's going to, there's certainly stuff beyond 404, but that's also going to put some of the 404 issues squarely into play. So that's kind of where we were planning to go this morning, Your Honor, with the testimony that we have. I can certainly get some more forensic people rolling. I apologize if I sort of misread what we needed to be ready to do, but that's kind of what we focused on last night and are ready to address this morning.
Well, the court didn't have a lot of time to do jury planning issues, and it might have, jurors typically come at 9:30. It might have been a better idea had, with greater thought, to have had them come later. And I don't know how long these issues will take to be addressed.
I think with the two law firm witnesses out of the gate, I think once the court has, we could do some very focused in-camera testimony, and I think that for those witnesses, the court can then rule on what's admissible and what's not, and once that's done, then we can get underway with the jury for those witnesses and proceed accordingly. And then, of course, we can certainly have a discussion as far as other witnesses, and then perhaps arrange a time to do any other in camera. But I think setting the table with these two witnesses is going to set the table for many of the issues that, whether they're in or out, that the court has to decide.
All right. Well, first, as relates to Rule conformity therewith, in other words, not admissible to show propensity to commit the crime or a crime, but it may be admitted for certain other reasons, including motive, identity, intent, and perhaps the existence of a common scheme or plan. Additionally, crimes can given the proper analysis as it relates to that evidence being offered. as I indicated earlier, that the court agrees with the view and as expressed by the court in U.S. v. Siegel, 536 Federal 3rd 306, wherein the court addressed the issue of previous crimes involving, previous alleged crimes involving multiple victims, and that the state should be able to pursue its theory of proving that why suddenly, or why some such tragic, the motive for such tragic an occurrence to have taken place on the dates alleged here. And under the federal rule, it goes on to say that evidence of other crimes or bad acts is necessary if it is an essential part of the crimes on trial, or where it furnishes part of context. This state has not adopted that portion of Rule 404B, but the courts have addressed that issue in some of the cases, particularly one that stands out to me as one of my cases, State v. Franky Lee McGee from Richland County, in which the res gestae was used as a basis for the courts properly allowing certain evidence, including evidence of commission of an earlier crime, the test being whether it logically relates to the crime with which the defendant is charged. Court states in that opinion under res gestae that one of the accepted bases for the admissibility of the evidence of other crimes arises when such evidence furnishes part of the context of the crime or is necessary to a full presentation of the case, or is so intimately connected with and explanatory of the crime charged against the defendant and is so much a part of the setting of the case and its environment that its proof is appropriate in order to complete the story of the crime on trial by proving its immediate context or the res gestae or the uncharged offense is so linked together in point of time and circumstances with the crime charged that one cannot be fully shown without proving the other, and thus is part of the res gestae of the crime charged. And where evidence is admissible to prove this full presentation of the offense, there is no reason to fragmentize the events under inquiry by suppressing parts of the res gestae. And interestingly, involved in that case, the court held that did not require a 403 analysis. Because the evidence was properly admitted as part of the res gestae, the issue of whether or not a 404B analysis was done was not necessary. And at this point, the court hasn't addressed any particular issue under 404B, but I find that it is admissible provided that the proper scrutiny is done in relation to clear and convincing evidence and a logical relationship to the offense for which we're having this trial. And additionally, as it relates to intent, evidence tending to prove a defendant's state of mind or intent at or near the time the crime is relevant to establish possible guilt. So there are many areas under which it's appropriate for the court to consider admitting this evidence of other crimes, other bad acts, in a manner that does not address or seek to have the jury conclude that it's propensity evidence, and the court will address all of that as we proceed. Yes, sir, Mr. Griffin.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just want to get some arguments on the record for purposes. Yes, as to your Honor's conclusion that we opened the door by presenting evidence of good character, I would respectfully disagree. And the evidence that we presented was specifically limited to the relationship between the defendant and the victim for which he's accused of murdering. In our view, that is not character witness. That's a factual issue relating to the relationship between the parties. And so I just want to put that on the record. Your Honor puts great emphasis and reliance on U.S. v. Siegel, and that's a federal case. And I just want, and I want to point out that.
Yes, I gave the site, federal site. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Federal second. Yeah.
The federal side is 536 F3rd 306.
F3rd, yes.
Yes, sir. And and it's important to distinguish the federal crimes for which the defendant in Siegel was charged with. First, the defendant, she was charged with murdering the victim to prevent him from reporting fraud, and that's a specific federal statute, 18 U.S.C. 1512 A1C. She's also charged with impending an official investigation by transporting the deceased body across state lines. But further, the indictment alleged a broader scheme and artifice to defraud. And in the indictment, it listed many of the prior crimes that the defendant committed in the federal indictment. And so, and under federal rule 404B, you can prove those up. And then there were others that the court considered they were related to the whole scheme and artifice to defraud. The indictment in this case, Your Honor, is simply on June 7th, 2021, the defendant with malice aforethought murdered Ms. Maggie Murdaugh, murdered Mr. Paul Murdaugh, and used violent weapons in commission of those two crimes. There's no scheme and artifice to defraud here.
You're currently addressing it as if the court ruled based on 404. And the court clearly stated that we have not reached any determination on 404, that the basis of the court's ruling was 403. The boating case, as you introduced through the witness, and opening the door by giving testimony, soliciting testimony of generally good character of the defendant, such that neither of the two witnesses could possibly imagine the scenario under which what would cause this crime to have occurred, and the state is entitled to confront that evidence in the manner in which the court ruled. But you're arguing 404. I cited that for an additional basis to say the court will need to look at all of that as we proceed with evidence of prior bad acts, but the basis of the court's ruling was not 404, but 403, opening the door and responding to the evidence that you adduced.
Yes, sir. I apologize. I misunderstood.
Yes.
Your Honors.
I did not rule based on
Rule-
U.S. v. Siegel and overruling your objection yesterday.
Fair enough. I guess would ask for clarification of where we go from here. Is your intentions to have a hearing outside the presence of the jury on their proposed 404B evidence?
Yes, sir.
Okay, then I can save all the arguments from then. Thank you.
Yes, sir. And again, with regard to planning purposes for the jury, you said a witness, whatever can be done without getting into the 404 or the court's need for an in-camera hearing, where we need to dismiss the jury for whatever period of time that might be, we can press on with what you have otherwise at this time, and whatever that is what we'll hear.
Yes, sir, Your Honor. Like I say, we have one short custodian, and then I think our next witness who's here would be somebody where we would need to address some of the 404. That would be Jeannie Seconder from the law firm. If you give me one moment, I can to confer with my staff, and we can see if we can get some other people rolling so that we can kind of stagger that and continue to have presentations for the jury during the course of the day.
All right. Minutes.
Oh no, the dreaded clock. I missed how long they were doing this. I think yes to the vote because the defense brought it up already in court. It opened up the door. Okay, that's what I was wondering about that. I was wondering that exactly. While they're doing this, I'm gonna test my earbuds. I'm not sure here what's going on. My earbuds don't work again. I'll just jump off for a second. I don't know what they're doing here. I might have to jump back really quick, but we'll look at these for a little while we're waiting. I didn't catch how long they were going to be. So this is the nest on the other side. And this is Lewis and Anna. And as soon as court starts up, we'll bounce back there again. Can you guys hear me okay? Looks like the raccoon saloon, no one's up. They're all sleeping. Panda Bear's hanging in her hammock. Grace the gorilla, they're all running around. And it's just starting to get nighttime in Africa, so not as much. Just amazing. me see if they must have all sorts of cams for those two over there. All these poor eagles are just getting doused in the rain. Oh, Mama's feeding these guys, so let's go over there. We like these babies. Alex and Andrea are these two. Come on, kids, get dry. Come on, come on. I'll sit on you. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The weather must be timing them out a little bit. Alex and Andrea are soaking wet. They're taking a bit of a break. I didn't expect that. I thought that they would bring them right in. Oh, it looks so gold. I don't see any fish. Looks like they're going to probably, someone is either hunting or they're going to. I'm noticing they usually have fish laying all around their nests. Burr. So yeah, these guys have 3 cameras on the lake. 2 cameras on the other one, on these 2, and 1 on the one across the lake. Still no movement in the courtroom. I think they should show, I think they should allow it. It shows character. It shows he's embezzler and he's a crook. Yeah, I think they should put out whatever's there. I mean, whatever's going to tell the truth of the story, I guess. Like, if it's part and parcel with what's happened to Maggie and Paul, then it should be in there. And it sounds like they are using the boat as one of the reasons he may have harmed Paul. I know nothing. With that said, I know absolutely nothing about any of the laws in the United States. And I doubt I'll ever figure it all out because the state. Oh, hang on, guys. Here we go. Here we go, guys. I'm going to mute out.
Are you ready to proceed?
Yes, sir. We do have, again, that custodian witness. Then I think we would have to, we are rolling some additional witnesses, but I think at that time we would have to break and do at least the first in-camera witness. Again, I think that may set the table for a lot of subsequent things. And then we can have some additional work outside of any 404 stuff in the afternoon, Your Honor. But certainly happy to do that, or if you want, we can put up some multiple witnesses on the in-camera here today.
So I think as it relates to each alleged bad act must be, the court must be informed and proffer and addressed separately. Of course, some may be a series of things occurring almost simultaneously, so that may be a different scenario. But we'll see how it goes. We're ready to proceed with the jury.
Yes, sir, Your Honor.
Yeah, that's what I think too, Dandy and Shauna. If it has any bearing on this court case, I think it needs to come in. Okay, my opinion, but Alec, his hair is getting oranger and oranger. That man is putting something in his hair to make it not gray. I'm watching it happen right in front of my eyes. What the hell? Look at. Check that out. What is he putting in his hair? Unreal. I swear he is.
The jury is present, sir.
All right, thank you. Good morning. Welcome back. Day number 9. State's case, you may call your next witness.
Thank you. State call Heidi Galore.
Raise your right hand, left hand on the Bible. You affirm the testimony about the court in this
I'm going to show you guys something real quick.
Take a seat in the
Sorry,
witness
just
stand.
one
State your name.
I want you to look at this. Look at his hair in this picture. Look at his hair. Totally different. I'm not going crazy.
Our team responds to legal process submitted to our company, subpoenas, search warrants, that kind of thing.
All right. So you're in charge of responding to search warrants or subpoenas from law enforcement or other legal entities?
Correct.
And briefly, please, what is Snapchat?
Snapchat, it's an application that was created by Snap Incorporated to help people express themselves. People can connect to their friends, people they know, and I guess you could consider it a social networking type of application.
Is social media another word that could be used for Snapchat?
Yes.
Does it give the ability for individuals to send each other messages?
Yes.
Does it give the ability for individuals to send each other pictures or videos?
Yes.
And in the normal course of this business, does Snapchat keep records if the user so chooses?
Yes.
What kind of records does Snapchat keep?
Basic subscriber information, content that was sent to and from folks, IP logs, geolocation, depending on the settings of the user.
Okay. I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 305 and 304. I'm going to ask if you recognize these two items.
I do. Yes.
And what are you holding?
The paper here is the basic subscriber information for the user that was produced in the search warrant.
And what's that CD?
The CD contains the full production of files that was sent to your agency, requested from the search warrant.
All right. And that was a search warrant from SLED
Yes,
that Snapchat responded to?
correct.
Okay. And you said there was subscriber information on that piece of paper, correct?
Yes,
And is that also located on the CD and the digital records?
yes, yes.
I'm gonna go back to you real quick. And Your Honor, at this time, state would move these indictments.
No objection, Your Honor.
They're admitted without objection.
I'm gonna hand you back states 304. And you indicated that was subscriber information, is that correct?
Correct.
And can you read for the jury the subscriber information for the information on the account that you provided in response to the search warrant?
Sure. The username is listed here. The username is listed here as Paul9499. Common spelling for Paul. The email address listed here is paulmurdaugh7845@gmail.com. The account was created on Saturday, May 18th, 2013. There's a creation IP, but it's not listed here. Sometimes it's captured at the time of creation of the account. This case, it doesn't seem to be. Phone number listed here is 803-842-7845. Display name is listed as Paul Murdaugh, and the status is active.
Okay. And when somebody uses a telephone number, for example, to create a Snapchat account, does Snapchat verify that number?
If the user wants to verify the phone number, yes, they can, but it's not required.
Okay. And what about the email? Is that required?
Not required either, no.
All right. I'm going to hand you State's Exhibit 306. This is already in evidence. And I believe this is a CD. Do you recognize that CD?
Yes, I do.
And have you reviewed the contents of that CD?
Yes, I have.
And what is on the contents of that CD?
It's a video of a subject near a tree, and it's a short video with some audio.
Okay. And did that video, was that part of the full search warrant return that we just talked about?
Yes.
And did you take a look at that video and the records contained in the other CD to determine when that video was first uploaded and first sent?
Yes.
Okay. Well, first of all, let's talk about the upload. Was it uploaded to something called Memories?
Yes.
And can you describe to jury what is Memories? What does that function with Snapchat?
Memories is kind of like a bucket where you can save your data. You can either create a video or some sort of photo on the app itself and save it to your memories so that it's always there when you need it, or you can upload from your camera, your phone, into Memories to then send to folks later, or just have it in there.
So is that a form of saving something in the cloud?
Correct, yeah, so it'll be on the server.
All right. And in reviewing these records, did you determine when this account uploaded that particular video to Memories?
Yes, this video was first seen on Memories on June 7th, 2021 at 7:39 hours
Okay.
Eastern.
And did the Snapchat also keep a record when an individual sends out a communication?
Yes,
And did you determine reviewing the records whether, that account sent out that particular video?
yes, it was sent on the same day, June 7th, 2021 at 7:56 hours Eastern time.
All right, thank you. And I'm going to show you, if you look at your monitor in front of you, and I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 306. And see if you recognize it. And did you recognize that video?
That didn't show up on the,
Oh, I'm sorry. Can we get the, get on the screen? My apologies. Oops. Okay. What's going on? Try it again. Can you see the what's on your screen right now?
yes,
All right. I'm gonna play that one more time. Okay. And do you recognize that video, man?
yes, I do.
All right. And is that video the video we just discussed that was part of the Snapchat search warrant return
Yes,
that you just testified was uploaded at 7:39 p.m. and sent at 7:56 p.m.?
yes.
No further questions.
Good morning, ma'am.
Morning.
Can we pull up the Snapchat video, just have it frozen on a screenshot? Done. I think it's plugged into this computer. All right, that's good. So this is what, or part of what Snapchat gave to the state on July 6th, is that, of 2021. Is that correct?
Correct.
So the state had this on July 6, 2021, in the state's possession,
I believe so, yes.
this information. And you testified that this was uploaded at 7:39 PM on the 7th of June, correct?
Correct.
Is that exactly when this video was shot?
I can't tell that information from the production.
Are you certain that's not something that could be told from the, perhaps the metadata for the video file?
There was no metadata produced for this production. It wasn't requested, so it wasn't produced.
So if someone were to right-click on this video file and you know, where it has various metadata that pops up on the screen, would we see a media created date?
I don't know.
Well,
I wouldn't know.
let's see if we would. Court's indulgence for a moment. Can you see on the screen the metadata for this file?
Yes.
And does it say June the 7th, 2021 at 7:38?
Yes.
And so this was shot basically a minute before it was uploaded, is that correct?
It appears so, yeah.
And I'm sorry if that seems picky, but in this case, you know, every minute and every second, you know, can matter. Does Snapchat keep a list of, and I might be getting the terminology wrong, friends or contacts that Paul would have had on Snapchat?
Yes.
Was that list produced?
No.
And why was that list not produced?
It wasn't requested in this case.
You mentioned earlier geolocation data. Was that produced?
No, not in this case.
And why was that not produced?
I don't believe it was requested.
Is it possible for, I mean, I don't know how it works, for some or all of Paul's friends to have access to his location through the app?
Yes, if his settings were, yeah, if he made his settings visible, his geolocation visible to his friends, yes.
And would that information about whether that was, that setting was in place to allow that, is that something that Snapchat would have had available to produce?
I'm not sure I'm not sure about that. If you can see that it's actually turned on or off. Yeah.
Was that requested?
No.
No further questions.
By the state.
Nothing else for the state.
Thank you.
Thank you.
May step down. Yes, sir.
The state's next witness would be Jeannie Seconder.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, there are matters that must be addressed outside of your presence. I do not know exactly how long it would take, but I do not like to have jurors sit in jury rooms just for long periods of time. So we're going to excuse you after you speak for the bailiff. We're going to take a recess with the jury while we deal with these matters. Let's see now, you all have lunch coming at what time? Nobody knows. 1 o'clock, 1:15. All right. Well, we won't need you before lunch. So if you'll go to the jury room and wait for further instructions, but we'll be having you all take a break until around that time.
So I'm not sure here if they're going to take it off camera or not. So I guess we will wait and find out.
See,
All right, again, in the state we call Jeannie Sechinger.
Raise your right hand. You affirm the testimony you like to give before the this trial to be the truth, so help you God. Thank you. Take a seat in witness stand. State your name again for the record. Spell your last name.
My name is Jeannie Seckinger, Seckinger.
Ms. Sechinger, how you doing today?
I'm good.
Good. Let me fix this Elmo real quick. You understand we're here right now outside the presence of the jury for an in-camera hearing to determine the admissibility of some of your testimony.
I do.
And just very quickly, if you would, give us a little bit. I'm not going to go through all the background that I went in front of the jury unless Your Honor would like, but give us a little bit about your background and where you currently work, how that led to where you currently work.
Okay. I graduated with a BS in accounting from USC, went to work in an accounting firm for a few years, then switched to industrial at Westinghouse. And in 1999, I came to work at PMPD, which is Peters, Murdaugh, Parker, as a temporary bookkeeper, and that has grown over the years to the office manager, CFO, accountant, anything business and insurance and HR related.
Okay, and that's for whom?
For Peters, Murdaugh, Parker, Elstrop, and Dietrich.
So that's PMPED,
Correct.
and that's the law firm that Alec Murdaugh used to work for.
Correct.
Does that have a different name now?
We are now a new entity that's called Parker Law Group LLP.
All right. So just very quickly, you've already kind of said this, but go through sort of the financial side of your job duties as it existed for PMPED back at the relevant time periods.
Okay, so my financial duties are, actually, I have people under me that do the day-to-day processing of checks, but my duties are to balance and reconcile accounts, provide financial statements, help with all tax documents, preparation of taxes. Also prepared anything for any government census or surveys that we needed and anything HR related.
I want to ask you a little bit about the financial structure of how PMPED works, if I could. And if you could explain that a little bit. people often think of lawyers as partners, but are they called partners under the employment agreement that everyone signed?
No, we're called partners when we refer to each other as they're in the business, but for tax purposes, everybody was an owner. It was a C corporation, so everybody's shareholders. And within Peters Murdaugh Parker, every employee was a salaried employee, including the partners.
Okay. And did the employment agreement that everyone signed require that any fees or money generated by any partner or lawyer by the firm had to go to the firm?
It did.
And explain to me how, if you're let's just call them quote partner, if you're a partner, how does the compensation work? What are the elements of compensation as it worked under the PMPED structure back in 2021 prior?
So every partner received a base salary that they would receive in biweekly payments throughout the year. That was set at a level of about $125,000. The majority of their pay came through an end of the year bonus, which is when we closed out the books and settled on the books. And primarily after overhead and over expenses were met, the net profit was divided amongst those partners. And in a simplified form, it was basically distributed based on a ratio of the fees that they brought in percentage to the total.
Right. But that distribution would not take place until when?
Usually the last week of December.
Yes, sir.
Waters, I was distracted. Can you repeat the previous question for me?
Yes, sir. Going back a second, Joe, we were talking a little bit about the compensation structure for PMPED as it existed in 2021. And if you could, again, explain to the court how that worked. How are partners, and we're going to call them loosely that term, how are they compensated?
Okay, partners are employed salaries who are paid a biweekly paycheck throughout the year with a base salary of $125,000. And at the end of the year, they received a bonus check, usually in the last week of the year, that divided up the remaining profits of the firm based upon the percentage of revenue each attorney brought into the total.
All right. So when fees came in, they're going to be attributed to a particular lawyer, and ultimately that's going to be a percentage of the total revenues, and that's going to determine their percentage of the compensation at the end of the year after all overhead is paid.
Correct.
Is there also some sort of 7.5% fund or fee or something like, or not, or amount that's put aside?
There is. You would take the gross bonuses that are the gross fees everybody brought in, less than overhead. And once we get to that number, everybody would throw in a pot 7.5%, and that money was divided back equally among the employees. And then a new percentage was arrived at to determine how much everybody would receive of the net income.
All right. So you have to take care of overhead, right?
Yes.
And what is an overhead, just generally?
Overhead is just basically the expenses to run the business, what it costs us to advance client costs, what it costs to pay our employees, what it costs to rent the building, to provide equipment, office supplies, postage, et cetera.
And that's got to be accounted for, and then you got to account for the 7.5% that as well, correct?
That's right.
All right. And then only after that does each partner get compensation based on their relative contribution during that year.
Correct.
Is typically the vast majority of compensation received by a partner at PMPED received in that distribution at the end of the year?
Yes.
And when does that take place?
The last week of the year, generally speaking.
Okay. And what is the point of that goal? Why do you want to sort of clear out all the money and clear the books?
Basically, that we don't want to leave the money in there to be taxed by the corporation because it's a C Corp entity. So the objective is to get it out to the partners and avoid double taxation.
And so because of that, is it up to each individual partner to essentially manage the bulk of their compensation that's received in one lump sum during the course of the next year?
Yes, they need a budget.
All right, let me show you what's been marked for purposes of this hearing as States 310 and see if you recognize that document.
Yes, this is the employment agreement each shareholder/partner would have signed.
Okay. And I just want to direct your attention to number 2, and if you could tell the court what that provision that's signed by all the partners says.
It says the employee accepts such employment and agrees that the employee will devote the employee's entire time and endeavor to the employer's business.
And then number 3, if you could read that to the court, please.
Services for the benefit of the employer. All professional services rendered by the employer shall be rendered as an employee of the employer, and all proceeds and remuneration received therefore shall inure to the employer's benefit.
Okay, now tell me what that means.
That means that all fees earned should come through payable to PMPD.
All right, and so if a lawyer earns fees, is it appropriate at all for those fees to go directly to the lawyer as opposed to going through the law firm?
No,
Is that a hard rule to understand?
no,
Anybody ever have a problem with that rule or not understand it?
no,
Pretty easy and hard and fast rule in that firm.
that's
correct?
right.
If you get the money written straight to you, what is that?
The money's taken straight to you,
Yeah,
that would be stealing it.
stealing. Please, could y'all turn the screen to me? All right. So. Is that better? Tony, could you see that in a second?
Yes,
All right, so 2 and 3 are the provisions you were just referring to.
that's correct.
Tell me just a little bit of your observation. How long have you known Alec Murdaugh? Let me ask you that.
I've known Alec since I was in high school, so roughly 40 years,
And how long have you worked with him, or did you work with
about 23, 24 years since 1999.
him? And did he have a lucrative practice in your observation?
Yes, he did well.
Was he sometimes getting as much as 7 figures in the end of the year?
He has.
Are you familiar with what's been called the boat case?
Yes.
And tell me what your understanding of the boat case is, just generally. What was that?
Generally speaking, it was an accident that several children got in one evening where it was in Paul's, or the Murdaugh's boat. Paul was accused as the driver, and there were a lot of civil suits and some criminal proceedings going on related to that crime.
And following the boat case, is it your understanding that Paul Murdaugh was charged?
Yes,
Is it your understanding that Alec Murdaugh was civilly sued?
yes,
And there was ongoing civil litigation at the time Paul and Maggie were murdered.
that's correct.
After the boat case happened, did you and Alec ever have any discussions about structuring fees?
We did in late May of 2021. Right about the end of the month, we had some discussions about Hirschberger. A disbursement came through that he had tried to send his fees to a structured settlement. And the conversation was that he had done it improperly, because to structure fees properly, it has to be part of the release. It has to go straight from the insurance company, straight to the insurance structured annuity place. And we would need to be told about it in our firm so we could account for it in our 7.5%. But in this particular case, Alec had sent the money directly to Forge. We discussed the fact that it would not be any tax benefit to him. And at that point in time, he said he was not really worried about the tax benefit of it. And he said he was trying to put some money in Maggie's name due to the boat wreck, and that he was trying to figure out if he was going to structure fees for the future.
Okay. Did he say he was trying to do a favor for anyone too?
He did say he was friends with Michael Gunn, and who is the owner of, or one of the operators of Forge, and that he was going to try to put up to about $250,000 into a structure as a favor for Michael Gunn.
All right. When you say Forge, what are you talking about?
So Forge is a company that does structured annuities.
You have the full name real quick?
It's Forge Consulting.
All right, let's call it Forge Consulting.
Okay, Forge
Try to do that.
Consulting.
All right.
Yeah.
Tell me about Forge Consulting and what they are.
They're a company that will do structured annuities for clients. They'll do structured fees for attorneys. They do some wealth management. They do minor pool trust. They have several different things that they do. I think they've branched out into insurance coverage now. they provide a lot of financial tools.
Now, when you say that you had a conversation with him about him supposedly structuring fees, how did this come to your attention?
It came to my attention over the fact that a disbursement, one of my secretaries or my assistant brought to me that had been brought to her attention by Alec's secretary or paralegal Annette Griswold, and came and asked me if this was proper, and then came to me after the fact, and that's when I went and had conversations with Alec about this.
Okay. And so had the money already been paid?
Yes,
And you went to Alec and you asked, what's this about?
yes.
And he said, I'm doing what?
I'm trying to defer and put money into Maggie's name, structure some fees.
Did he tell you where that money had gone? What was your belief where that money had gone after you talked to Alec?
My belief was it had gone to Forge Consulting.
The real entity, Forge
Yes.
Consulting.
Yes.
All right. I'm going to show you just real quick what's been marked for purposes of this hearing as States 311 and see if you recognize that series. I think there's 4 documents in there.
Yes, these are the Hirschberger settlement documents, which is the case that we're talking about with the fee that he sent as a structure.
Okay. And are there 1 or 2 in there ultimately?
There are ultimately 2. There's one that's structured to look like fee, and then the other one was structured to look like it was client's money that was being sent on the client's behalf.
Which one were you aware of at the time?
I was aware of the fee one for the $83,333.33.
All right. At the time, did you think that any money had been misappropriated or stolen, or did you just think Alec was trying to sort of divert some money because of the boat case, but not necessarily anything misappropriated?
Right. We were not thinking about him misappropriating funds or stealing any client funds. What we were concerned about was he was trying to either defer income by leaving it in somebody's trust or either trying to put some money into Maggie's name to avoid things for the boat accident.
When you say we were concerned, who's concerned?
Myself and some of the partners.
Why are y'all concerned about him potentially trying to put money in a structure or in Maggie's name because of the boat case?
Well, because that would be wrong and we did not want any part of that.
Let me put this up on the screen real quick. All right. Do you recognize this document right here?
Excuse me. Yes, that's the document that is in question with the $83,333.33 fee sent to Forge.
All right. And right there, and tell me what this disbursement sheet is very quickly. Explain that to the court.
So this is where the client recovered $250,000. You can see it came from 3 different insurers, and we would take a portion of our fee. Generally, this looks like a third, and our expenses of $9,300. The Sedgwick claims would have been a lien that we were paying off, and then the $140,678.55 would have been the money dispersed between the beneficiaries of that estate.
And what is this line right here?
That would represent the fee.
At this point in time, had you actually seen the check that was made out for those fees?
I don't recall if I actually looked at it at that point in time.
And normally fees, where would they go?
Normally, if fees would come to us and we would deposit it into our income account, what we call our income account.
Okay. So fees come in from somebody who pays the settlement. Where do they go initially? What account do they go in?
To the income account, the PMPD operating income account.
Okay. Fees go in there?
Yes,
All right. When a settlement comes in, where does it go?
it goes into a client trust account for the benefit of the client,
And then the portion of that is allocated for fees, it goes from the trust account to where?
to the income account.
Okay. It usually doesn't go out to Forge Consulting or anything like
No.
that. After you had that conversation with Alec, did you follow up any more on the matter?
We had a couple of conversations about it in relation to when we were having some other conversations, but we didn't really readdress this again until late September, late August, early September.
Did you kind of put it on the back burner?
I did. I was, at that point, it had been done and I was trying to figure out how we were going to account for it on our books and just kind of had it out there as a reminder to try to see, to put in my mind later to see if anything else had been done like that or to see if he was going to try to do that again.
After that particular event, you said that was in late May sometime?
You're right.
Did another matter come to your attention about disbursements as it related to Alec Murdaugh's practice in his business?
It did.
And tell me what that was, please.
So on, this was a case called the Ferris versus Mack truck case. And on a Monday, I believe it was May 24th, Annette Griswold called me and said that she had something she needed to discuss with me. I was out of the office that day in our Waldeboro office, but when I returned, we met. And when she showed me, what had happened was we received a check for our client expenses. So this case was actually dispersed by the associated attorney, which was Chris Wilson. So he sent us a check for the money that we had forwarded as client expenses, but we did not receive a fee check. And that in itself is odd generally.
Why is that odd? Why did Annette call you? Because y'all had received a fee check from Alec's best friend, Chris Wilson, but not the, the expense check, but not the fee check.
Right. Most of the time we receive them together. Well, Annette, when she did not receive them together, called my assistant Nicole to make sure we had not already received the fee, verified that we had not already received the fee. And at that point, Annette had some conversations with Vicki Lyman in Chris's office. And Vicki informed Chris that their bosses had already got the fee when the settlement was signed, which had happened in March. And this was May.
And Vicki informed Chris or Vicki informed Annette?
Vicki informed Annette of that.
So why is that a concern to you that now you're hearing the fee's already been paid?
Because now we know we don't have the check. We've never received it. So either he's got a fee, either he's got a check he hasn't turned in to us that is properly payable to PMPD, or he's received a check payable to him.
Right. And when you were considering the possibility that he perhaps received a check payable to him, aside from that being stealing, as you had earlier testified to it, what's your concern then?
Saying that he's trying to hide money from the boat wreck.
Right. All right. Stand by for me. All right, I'm going to show you what's been marked as, for the purposes of this hearing, as Exhibit 312, and see if you recognize this document.
Yes, this is the expense check that we received in the Ferris matter
Okay. And
from Wilson Law Group.
just quick flip through it and just tell me generally what's in that packet.
The rest of the packet is our deposit, which is an internal record, our client cost report, which matches that expense check. Then the rest of it, the second, what I'm looking at right now is a check made payable to Richard Alexander Murdaugh Esquire for $192,000, and it references Ferris fees.
Okay, keep going.
Next page is the deposit where it says Bank of America deposit only. And it looks like ACH. That looks like, it actually looks to me like LX initials. And then it says Bank of America.
Is there a series of emails after that?
Series of emails starts with Vicki Lyman informing Annette Griswold about the fact that their bosses had received the fee back when the disbursement was signed.
All right, let me put those emails up on the screen. I believe there's no objection versus this hearing. All right. So this is email, and Annette Griswold, explain to the judge who Annette Griswold is, please.
Annette Griswold is one of Alec's primary paralegals.
Okay. And right here, this is an email that was ultimately sent to you as part of bringing this to your attention?
Yes.
All right. And what is she asking right there?
She said, why just expenses and no fee?
All right. All right. And what was the response there?
Dear friend, it is only cost because your boss and mine and Liz's got their fees once they were assigned.
Okay. So Annette's informing you that Chris Wilson's office says they already got the fees.
Correct.
All right. All right. After that, did you have a conversation with Annette what to do?
I did. I actually talked with Lee Cope. We went to Lee. Sometimes a lot of the partners are not in the office, and Lee Cope was the one who was in the office. So I went to talk to Lee about what we should do. And of course, Annette was worried about getting, ramifications if she was wrong and didn't want to be in trouble. So Lee and I decided to take it over from there. And the course of action that we decided upon was that I would send an email to Annette requesting the disbursement, the supporting documents, and the general ledger printout for Chris Wilson's office, which is what we keep in our office.
All right. And if we go right here, is that the email you're speaking of right there?
That is
All right. What's the date on that?
May 27th.
All right. And so then what happens to that email from there if we look over to the next page?
So apparently Vicky in Chris Wilson's office was on vacation. So on June 2nd, Annette clarifies with Vicky what exactly we were looking for. And again, she asked for the full disbursement paperwork, including the disbursement sheets, expenses, supporting docs, and ledger.
All right. And you're included on that email?
I am CC'd, yes.
Okay. All right. Did y'all ultimately get a response on that?
Vicky responded that she would have to send that email to Chris because she did not have privy to that information. So that was on the 2nd. The next day, Alec came into my office early and asked me why I needed that information and assured me that the money was in Chris Wilson's account and that they could get it anytime.
Okay. And did y'all discuss anything further when you had that conversation?
Just that we needed to get it, or I needed proof that it was there, that it was necessary to get it. At that point, I didn't indicate to him that I thought it was missing. I was just asking for the documentation.
And that was on what day?
It was sometime in between June 2nd and June 7th.
Okay. All right. On June 7th, did the issue come back to a head?
The issue did come back to heads.
Just clear, this is June 7th, 2021.
Yes.
And how much were these fees supposed to be? Did you know?
$792,000 in total.
And to this point, the firm had not received those fees. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And Chris Wilson's office is saying initially, we already dispersed them.
Yes. And Chris Wilson's not saying anything to me.
Was, to your knowledge, was an inquiry made to Chris Wilson at that time?
Lee Cope, we had not inquired Chris Wilson other than requesting this information at this point in time.
All right. So tell me about June 7th. How does that go?
So on June 7th, I was going to make another run at finding out from Alec if we had their information. I went upstairs to his office is on the 2nd floor, and he was leaning on a file cabinet outside his office. And he turned and looked at me when I came up and said, "What do you need now?" And gave me a very dirty look, not a look that I'd ever received from Alec, from just kind of frustrated with me look, which made me go, "Oh, you want to know? Let's go in your office." So we went in the office and closed the door. And at that point, I told him that I had reason to believe that he had received the funds himself and that I needed proof that he had not.
Received those fees himself.
Yes.
And I needed proof that they were not.
Yes.
What did he tell you?
He told me again, that he assured me that the money was there and that he could get it. And at that point, I said, I'm just trying to do my job. And if I don't get this paperwork and verify that with these questions, I'm not doing my job. He actually acted like he respected that. And again, said that that money was there and that he again was trying to decide what he was going to be doing with it.
And did y'all get to conclude that conversation, or did something interrupt it?
We did not. He took a phone call in the middle of that conversation That phone call was about his father who was in the hospital, that he was going to be terminal, and that there was nothing else they'd be able to do for his father. So that changed the mood of the conversation. We quit talking about business, and I immediately asked about him and his family and his dad. And, we got talking as friends at that point, concern over the family. And after that, I shortly left. So it briefed and cut down the conversation.
All right, you'd come in there asking for proof where that money was, because you had reason to believe he took it, and then the conversation ultimately got short by the call about his father.
Yes,
Did you have a conversation later in the day with Ellen?
I did. Around 4:00, my phone rang, and I remember that because I had been under the impression Alec was going to leave and go to the hospital or leave to deal with his father. And around 4:00, my office extension rang. And at that point, he was asking me for some information on his 401k balances because he stated he was working on some financials for the hearing on the boat accident that was later in the week.
There was a hearing later in the week, and he was working on financials for the boat accident.
Correct.
Did that strike you as odd?
That he called and asked me? No, he had asked me before. So, and I would be the one to give him the 401k. So it didn't surprise me that he's calling and asking me about that. But I was surprised that he was in the building working on it.
And why was that?
I just thought he was leaving a deal with his father.
Because that interrupted the prior conversation.
That's right.
Is that the last conversation you had with him?
It is.
When did you find out about the murders?
I initially found out through the rumor mill around 10:30 or 11 o'clock the evening of them, but I did not get confirmation until I received a text from the partner roughly 2:30 or 3 o'clock in the morning.
Were you shocked by that?
Yes.
Scared?
Yes.
Worried?
Yes.
Worried for Alec?
Worried for everybody. Yes, especially Ellie.
In the wake of the murders, do you know if the hearing that was later that week got canceled?
It did get canceled.
That was a hearing in the boat case where he's personally a defendant?
That's my understanding, yes.
In the wake of the boat case, did you and the partners have a discussion about what to do about getting to the bottom of these Ferris fees?
We did. We did not the week of the murders because pretty much our office shut down the week of the murders, and then his father also passing away. But when we got back around to it, Lee and Mark Ball and I were the ones doing the discussion. Lee decided that he would call Chris Wilson himself directly and try to get the information, and Lee took over from there.
In the wake of the murders, did anyone want to bring that up to Alec again?
No, nobody wanted. Alec was distraught and upset and not in the office much, and nobody wanted to harass him about nothing that we thought was really missing. We had several months till the end of the year to clear it up, so we were not going to harass him at that point in time.
So that part just got stopped in its tracks. Is that true?
Yes, Lee took over calling Chris Wilson and trying to pursue it.
All right. And when was that? You said in July sometime?
Yes, probably early July.
All right. And what was the result of that?
Lee said, and you could speak to him more clearly, but Lee said Chris Wilson got off the phone pretty quick with him, which was surprising because apparently Chris Wilson has the gift of gab. But again, Chris assured Lee that it was there.
All right. Ultimately, did y'all get an email about this particular issue?
We did. Ultimately, on July 19th, there was an email from Chris to Alec stating that the money was in Chris Wilson's trust and would have been available anytime that we requested it. That email was forwarded to Lee Cope and myself.
From whom?
From Alec.
And what is that the email up on the screen that you're talking about right now?
It is.
All right. And we see 600,000 for Andrew Ferris and 192 for Denise. Explain that breakdown, if you would, please.
So there's two parties in this case, and apparently there was two recoveries, and each of them would have had a fee dependent upon their recovery. So to me, this looks like Andrew's portion, the fee for his settlement was 600,000, and Denise's was 192,000.
At this point in time, had the firm received this $792,000?
No,
Did this email, though, sort of end the inquiry, at least for the present moment?
Yes.
All right, well, let's move the story forward again. Did this matter ever come to your attention again at a later time?
Yes.
All right, and tell me when that came to your attention.
That would have been in September, after we found some other misappropriations and we had confronted Alec and he had resigned. We ended up having more conversations with Chris Wilson right after that, and Chris admitted that he did not have all the money.
Well, let me back it up. Before we get to there, I'm talking about as far as it was to Alec. Did this particular issue with trying to get the Ferris fees come to your attention? And let me take you to early September 2021.
No, not that I recall.
Okay. In early September 2021, did the Hirschberger matter that you mentioned earlier, did that come back here?
That came back to my attention. I started pursuing that and decided I was going to go through and look and make sure that he had not tried to already defer something else that we had missed. And at that point, I decided to print a ledger out of our system of payments to Forge. And as I did that, I started printing all the documents that relate to those disbursements, the disbursement statements and the canceled checks. And as I started printing the canceled checks off, I could see Bank of America on the back and Ellen Murdaugh's signature. And everyone that came out was just put it a little bit more in the grave for me. That's when I found that out. I had William Barnes come over, who was a partner who was in there in the office that day, and had him look at them. He also believed that they were Alec's signatures on the back of these checks.
All right, just real quick, these are checks coming from the client trust account,
Yes,
and they're made out to what?
Forge.
But what's unusual to you that's causing you to have that feeling that you just described?
The endorsement and the Bank of America on the back, and the fact that it looked like Alec's signature.
Okay. All right. And so you talked to William Barnes, is that right?
Yes,
And did you talk to other partners about what you were finding?
we did. William and I then called Mark Paul, who had been aware of this situation all the time. Mark Paul was the treasurer, so he came back and we showed him the signatures. He agreed with us, and he also recognized one of the disbursements as a case that could not have possibly been dispersed yet because it was held up waiting some court orders for a work comp lien. We said to Lee that night about it, and Lee, we came to the plan for Lee to call Michael Gunn with Forge and see if they had banked at Bank of America. And Michael Gunn confirmed that they had not banked at Bank of America in a number of years.
Did y'all send them a list of clients, the ones that you were pulling off of your system that had payments to Forge at Bank of America?
We did. We gave him a few names that evening, not a complete list. We gave him a few names that we had, and he verified that Michael Gunn verified to Lee Cope that those were not any structures or any annuities, and they didn't have records of them.
All right. Around this time, did Annette bring you anything and that this is all going on?
Yes, so this is completely independent and coincidental. And at the same afternoon of September 2nd, was in his office trying to look for something. And when she moved to file, a check fell out. When the check fell out, she looked down, it was Chris Wilson, and it was the $225,000 check payable to Richard Alexander Murdaugh that we had already found.
And I'm going to show you what's been marked as Exhibit 313, states for purposes of this hearing. You recognize that?
That's the check.
This is the actual check that was found. Is that right?
That's correct.
Hold on for me real quick. Got an endorsement on the back. Let me ask you this. You've worked with Alec Murdaugh for how long?
23 years roughly.
During that time, did you become familiar with his handwriting?
Yes,
Can you recognize it when you see it?
yes,
Looking at the handwriting, the endorsement on the back of that document, do you recognize it?
that's his signature.
This is
Handwriting.
What is that? Copies of these, there's exhibits for the court.
Yes, sir. You're right. If you'll just give me 1 second, I'll hand the exhibits we're talking about up to the court as well. But up on the screen, is this the check?
Yes. Yes,
And then on the back, whose writing is that?
Alex.
Once you started printing out all those forged ones that had Alex writing on it at Bank of America, and you contacted Forge, did you ask them whether or not they ever banked the real Forge ever banked at Bank of America?
Lee Cope had that conversation and Michael Gunn verified that they had not banked there in a number of years, more than 10 years.
And they didn't have any active structures on any of the clients that y'all had given.
That's correct.
As a result of that, what did the leadership at the firm do next?
We convened a meeting, the majority of partners, myself present. We found and showed everybody the documentation we had recovered. And the choice was made, Randy was not present initially. The choice was made to bring Randy in and show him what we had found.
And after Randy was brought in and showed what was found, what happened next?
Randy immediately conceded that we needed to talk to Alec, that it looked like he had stolen. Danny and Randy got together and met with Alec outside of the office.
Okay. And did they confirm with this information?
They did, and it's my understanding that Alec admitted it, that it was determined he would resign.
Okay. Did he ask for a leave of absence?
I think he tried to do a few other things before resigning, but we made him resign.
After the decision was made to resign, was it announced right away, or was there any statement put out or anything like that right away?
It was not announced right away because the decision was made. Johnny Parker was getting married the next day, and it was late on a Friday, and that we were going to kind of hold off until the first of the week. We were going to contact some ethics attorneys and see what we needed to do and announce it the first of the week.
So we're in the weekend, September 3rd, September 4th, something like that?
Yes.
Is that Labor Day weekend?
Yes.
What's the next thing you recall hearing about Alec?
The next thing I heard about Alec was, I was actually with my family on the sandbar. And the next thing I heard was Suzanne Peoples with the EMS came down and told me that Alec had been shot in the head and was being flown out to Savannah.
Was that on the side of the road at Old Salcahatchee?
That's correct.
What's the first thing you thought when you heard he had been shot?
Nobody knew what to think. A lot of thoughts went through. Fear went through. Was this retaliation? Was he involved in something bigger that was going to get more of us in trouble? And just fear.
All right. As the months went on after that, did y'all continue to review your records looking for additional misappropriations?
We did. We immediately decided, once we found this out on September 2nd and had the confrontation on the 3rd, we immediately started doing a dig into our books and proactively going to look for anything. And anything that we found, we turned over to law enforcement. We also had a forensic audit from an outside firm come in and provided information from them. So this took most of September, gathering all this information and going through all of our stuff to figure out what else we had missed or what else had occurred.
You've already described the checks to the forged account at Bank of America, which was a fake forged account. Is that correct?
That's right.
Was there another manner in which Alec Murdaugh misappropriated money that you uncovered in your review of the firm's records?
Yes, we've also found out some payments made through Palmetto State Bank.
Okay. And generally explain how those were working.
So those were working, some of those Russell Lafitte was the conservator on, and funds were directed to Palmetto State Bank as if they were going to be held for the beneficiary. And those checks were later converted into personal use for Alec.
All right.
And incidentally, week after we, of the boat, of the roadside shooting, when we were going stuff in Alec's office, we actually found Forge, R. Alexander Murdaugh, doing business at Forge bank statements in his office.
Okay, so you found the Bank of America bank statements?
Yes.
And the title on those bank statements was what?
R. Alexander Murdaugh, doing business as Forge.
I'm gonna get a document marked if I could real quick. The client trust account checks, what color are they?
Green,
All right, and the operating checks, are they a different color?
blue.
314 for this hearing. This will be the spreadsheet that's in one of the folders in the packet I just gave you. It starts at the top, the check date 12/26/18. And I'm going to show you what's been marked as states 314 for this hearing and see if you recognize that document.
Yes, this is a spreadsheet that we've developed of the money and the clients that had money stolen using the Forge payment method.
All right. And by the forged payment method, you mean what?
Basically checks payable to Forge that looked like they were going to be for a structured annuity on the behalf of the client.
All right. And again, for the purposes of this hearing, in preparing that chart, you've been keeping a chart, keeping these records. Is that correct?
That's right.
Is this all the misappropriations, or is this focused just on some for purposes of a particular category?
This is just for purposes of this particular category.
And what category is that again?
Forge.
All right. All right, I'm going to put this up on the screen. And just real quick, if you could just go across and tell me what the various categories represent, please.
Excuse me. The categories, if you see the column of category Forge payment, those would be where checks were actually written to Forge as if those were the beneficiaries' proceeds that were being sent for a structured annuity.
Okay.
The next line where it says Barrett Boulware took insurance proceeds, this is actually a check that was payable to Barrett Boulware from Southern Fidelity Insurance. And Alec actually endorsed that check. He had power of attorney on that file. He actually endorsed that check, and later we were able to trace it into his personal accounts.
All right.
If you keep going down, the majority of these are Forge payment. If you get to Dion Martin, the first line says fake.
Just real quick, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Just go across though. We've got the client, we've got the civil action number, we've got the category we were just describing, we got the date the trust was funded, and then we have the amount. Is that
That's
correct?
right.
And the date the trust was funded, what is that category refer to?
That refers to when we found out and did the deep dive into exactly what had happened on each file and deposited the money back immediately into our client trust. So that's the firm actually, as we found these, put money in client trust. We then met with all the clients, reestablished what the correct disbursements should have been, and returned all funds to the clients.
So the firm had to pay the money back that you've determined in each one of these cases that Alec Murdaugh misappropriated through the fake forge on this list.
We did.
What's the total amount on this sheet?
$2,841,512.55.
And again, does this represent everything or just a particular category?
Just a particular category.
Just real quick, I see that says 129.11 for Thomas Moore. Is that supposed to be 21?
Yes. And that would be the date and the check number of the check that was taken.
I'm gonna hand Exhibit 314 up to you. And if you could correct that with my pen here, and then just put your initials next to it, please. Going back to Exhibit 314, if we look at all the check dates on here, we have the earliest one about August of 2015. Is that correct?
That's right.
And then it continues all the way up to early 2021. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Along with your spreadsheet that was just marked, have you also prepared some supporting documentation for each one of those transactions of misappropriation that you've done?
Yes, correct.
And each one of these says the firm had to make the clients whole because of the defendant's misappropriation?
We did.
All right, I'm going to show you what's been marked as 315, and this is particular case is Elise Mallory. And just as an example, and see if you recognize that document.
Indeed, this first document is the disbursement, which would have been drafted at the end of the case that states the recovery, expenses, fees, and payments to clients. Next, we have, this one actually had a payment to forge, so I have a copy of that canceled check. And then the third and fourth pages are where we did our correcting disbursements with footnotes about what had happened and explained everything to our clients when we reimbursed them.
Okay. Let's put that up on the screen real quick. And are there similar documents, supporting documents for each one of these transactions that's on your spreadsheet?
There is.
So this is a disbursement sheet, is that right?
That's correct.
And I didn't ask you, but very quickly, tell me what a disbursement sheet is and how they're supposed to work.
So disbursement sheet just shows at the conclusion of a case, once the recovery, it will show the recovery amount, list out the fees that were sent to the attorneys, shows fee splits if there's multiple attorneys, shows the amount of expenses we collect back, any liens or loans that were payable that were in the scope of that case. And then the final amount would be the payment to the client or the client's beneficiaries if they had beneficiaries.
All right. And then down here at the bottom of this particular one, do you recognize that signature?
Yes, that's Alex.
Okay. And going to the second page, what is this right here?
That is a copy of the check that was payable to Forge that you saw on the bottom line of that other disbursement, as well as the back of it showing the endorsement.
All right. And is that the real Forge or the fake Forge?
That's the fake Forge.
All right. And then what is this document right here?
This is the correcting disbursement. The yellow totals would signify what the correct amount should have been and the corrections that would needed to have been made.
All right. Going back to this first page, in this particular one, how much was the recovery? You see that?
$183,528.
All right. And then was there an attorney fee taken from PMPED?
There was an attorney fee taken. In this case, it was $30,000, which was a reduced fee. We generally get a third or 40%, but there are instances where the attorney will reduce their fee for some reasons.
And do you know why? Who requested the fees be reduced in this case?
That would be Alec would have done that.
Alec did that, and so, but those fees got paid to the firm from that recovery, correct?
They did.
All right, great. So the rest of that money went to the client, didn't it?
It did not. It actually went to the fake forge account where Alex stole the money from the client.
Every last bit of it.
Every bit, the 152,866.
That client didn't get one dime until y'all had to make it right.
That's right.
And that's similar to the rest of the examples we have.
It's exactly like the rest.
Been going on for years.
Yes.
There is a supporting documentation like that for each one of these, and they're in the packet up there. I'm happy to go through all of those in the with the witness. I don't want to sell myself short if I need to. I don't know if the point for purposes of your honor is made, or if you would like me to go through each one of those. I'm happy to keep going.
Who's this? Mr. Griffin? Is this yours?
So you,
Okay. Course indulgence, 1 moment, Your Honor.
Do you have a summary of everything, Ms. Seconder?
Miss Seconder, yes.
Seconder's.
I can do that from the spreadsheet, Your Honor. And then we're marking the supporting documentation, which I'll go ahead and mark. But I think with Ms. Seconder, we can kind of walk through each one and describe each one while we do that. But each packet has, we've got this spreadsheet that has each one on there. And then for each one of them, we tried to minimize it down to the bare minimum. And again, this isn't even all of the misappropriation. But we've got, just have a few supporting documents for each one, which is the disbursement sheet, the fake forged check typically, and then the corrected disbursement sheet that the firm had to do. That's generally what each packet has. For example, like the one we last did. Is that correct, Ms. Sessions?
That's correct.
And so I can go through those quickly and we can do that on the spreadsheet. And then we have one other category that they uncovered of manner in which he was able to misappropriate money going back to, I think, 2008, 2009, something like that.
You may proceed.
Thank you. All right. So, Your Honor, we're going through that packet that was provided up there with you, and we're going to go in order except for Hirschberger, which we already talked about. And so, Ms. Seconder, can you see okay on that screen there?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I'm going to just kind of move through these as expeditiously but as accurately as we can. First one, we have this particular client, Miss Adriana. Is that correct?
That's right.
All right. And I'm going to put 317 up on the screen. And is this the disbursement sheet for that?
That is the disbursement sheet for that, yes.
All right. And down at the bottom, do you recognize the signature where it says attorney?
That's Alex's signature.
All right. And would typically the attorneys meet with the clients and get them to sign these disbursement sheets before any disbursements were made?
Typically, we did the checks on the attorney's signature, and then the attorney met with the client and had them signed at the same time they distributed and discussed the disbursement.
Gotcha. All right. And then right here on this particular one, we have a total recovery amount of how much?
$247,500.
All right. And then the firm gets paid its fees out of that.
And again, that looks like a reduced fee of $22,000.
And what happens to the rest of the money?
The $225,073.46 went to a fake forge account that was for Alec's benefit.
All right, and is that the check right there?
That is,
Whose signature is that right there?
that's Alec's.
All right, and that's 225 and change, and then you have the corrected disbursement sheet, is that correct?
That's correct.
And this is where the firm had to make good on Alec's misappropriation.
That's correct.
All right, let's move to the next one. This would be for Mr. Barrett, using the first name, is that correct?
That's right, Barrett Bolware.
All right, and just using the first name. We have this first one is the 75,193, is that right?
That is the check I discussed earlier that was payable to Barrett that Alec endorsed directly and deposited into his account.
All right, and I'm on exhibit 318. We're going to the third page, but is this that check right here that was made out to Mr. Bulware?
That is, and that was actually found as we went through his desk after September 3rd.
All right, and you recognize that writing right there? I can zoom in if you need to.
That's Alec's writing.
All right, and this is the deposit slip went along with it?
Yes,
And what's the name right there?
Alec Murdaugh.
All right, going to the next one on the list, we have this one, and the amount is 279,850.65. Is that right?
That's correct.
All right, and we're still in exhibit 318. And this is the disbursement sheet, the original disbursement sheet right there.
That's correct.
Whose signature is down at the bottom.
That's Alec Murdaugh's.
And what does that say right there?
$279,000, $850.65.
that
Payable
good?
to Forge.
Fake forge or real forge?
Fake.
All right, and then what is that right there?
That's the check payable to Forge showing Alec signing it and endorsement on the back.
Okay. All right, let's move on to the next one. We have, this is Hirschberger. We already did that one, correct?
That's correct.
Well, yeah, we already did that one. All right, let's go on. And we did the next two. Those were those two fees that Alec told you he was structuring.
That's right.
All right, or at least this one was, correct?
That's right.
All right, let's go on to Ms. Gary. This is States 319. This is the disbursement sheet right here.
That is the initial disbursement sheet.
Okay, and what is that right there?
Excuse me, that is not the initial, that's the second one. So there's a Forge structure right there, 112.5, a payment of the personal rep and the amount divvied between the beneficiaries. That Forge structure should have been paid to the beneficiaries, and again, it was paid to the fake Forge account.
All right,
You
look
see
at-
the check signed by Alec and endorsed by Alec.
all right, so that's 112.5 right there, correct?
That's right.
And then you have the corrected disbursement where y'all had to make right to the clients.
That's correct.
Moving on to the next one. We have Mr., and I'm gonna use their first names. Use that for me if you can, please.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Christopher.
Mhm.
All right, and we have this, you have this disbursement right here, is that correct?
That's right.
And whose signature is that right there?
Alec Murdaugh's,
And we got how much?
750,000.
Going to what?
Fake Forge,
The fake forge, is that correct?
that's right,
And then we have the check
that we do.
and who's, do you recognize that on the back?
That is Alec Murdaugh's,
Okay, and this is $750,000.
that's correct.
All right, and then we have another disbursement sheet where y'all had to correct it and make it right to the client.
That's correct.
Y'all had to pay back $750,000
We did,
that Alex spent,
We
client
did.
money.
we did, he stole it.
All right, let's go to the next one. Dion Martin, we have 3 for Mr. Martin, is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, let's look at that. We have,
So you have a little new category here. You see it above where it says structured annuity directly to Michael Gunn for 500,000. And then it's offset by the proceeds structured annuity below. This would represent like there was an annuity associated with that case that had been properly structured and sent. And that resulted in there being a $200,000 fee taken on that $500,000 that should not have been taken from the client.
so just a sleight of hand with paperwork, and Ella created a phantom real $200,000 in fees from thin air.
That's right.
All right, but that's not the end of this one, is it?
No.
Okay.
All right, right here on the second page, we have a disbursement to Forge. Is that correct?
That's right.
And is that real Forge or fake Forge?
That's the fake Forge.
How much is that one?
$338,000, 56.14.
Okay. Now, we already talked about on this list, we talked about the fake fee of 200,000 that you just mentioned.
That's right.
And we did the 338,056.
That's right.
14. Okay, let's keep going. And what's that?
That's the check for the $338,000 that's payable to the fake Forge and endorsed by Alec.
All right. And then what is this disbursement sheet?
This one is showing a structured payment of $45,000. And this one incidentally had a quote attached to it and is signed by the client. And that also went to the fake Forge account, his personal account. This is a copy of the quote from Forge.
But no Forge structure was ever
No,
materialized.
no was done. We verified none was ever done.
All right. And what is that $45,000 check there?
This is the $45,000 check to the fake Forge deposited by Alec.
And is this the disbursement sheet where y'all had to correct it and make it right to the client?
Yes.
All right. Moving on to the next one. We have at least Mallory, and that's the one I showed you at the beginning. It is an example. Is that
That's
correct?
right.
All right. So we've done that one, and that was 183,528, where he took every last dime of it. Is
That's
that correct?
right.
All right, the last one I talked about was 321. The one before that was 320, and the one before that was 319. We are now on 322. Let me turn the page. And we have Mr. Jamian, is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, and right here, we've got a disbursement sheet, is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, and we have a Forge of $90,000.
That's correct.
All right, and is that real Forge or fake Forge?
Fake Forge.
Okay, and what is this right here, sideways?
That is the check payable to Forge, the fake Forge, and the endorsement on the back of the check.
All right, and then we have an expense disbursement right there of 5541.17, is that correct?
That's correct.
And is that another amount that y'all had identified?
We identified later that that was an incorrect charge to a client file, so we reimbursed that as well.
Okay, and is this that page right here?
Yes.
And what did Alec bill to the client that y'all determined was improper?
Some airfare
To where?
on a private flight. I can't recall, but I believe that one might have been down to the Keys.
Do y'all have to pay that money back too in this corrected disbursement?
We did.
That was exhibit 322. We got 333. Mr. Johnny, $95,000. Is that right?
That's correct.
All right. On the first page, we have the disbursement sheet and we have a Forge line right here for $95,000.
That's correct.
Did that go to the real Forge or the fake Forge?
Fake Forge.
Okay. We have a copy of the check right there. Is that correct?
That's the copy of the check and the endorsement and a copy of the correcting disbursement.
Y'all had to make that right to the client.
We did.
Moving on to 324. Mr. Jordan, we got a disbursement to Forge. Is that right?
That's right, for $85,000 along with the fake check and the endorsement on the check.
Okay. And then the corrected disbursement, correct?
You missed the one for $65,000. There was two in that one.
Yep, there it is right there.
That's right. And then the correcting.
All right. So we had an 85 and a 65,000 for that one, correct?
Correct.
Exhibit 325. This is now Mr. Manuel, and we have a $70,000 Forge. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Fake Forge?
Fake Forge.
All right. And what's that right there?
The check payable to Forge, the fake Forge, and the endorsement. And this is the correcting disbursement where we paid the client back that $70,000.
Go on to the next one. We got Miss Mary, and we got a settlement proceeds to Forge of 19.5 right there. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And this is exhibit 326. And did that go to real Forge or fake
The
Forge?
fake Forge.
All right. And what is that right there?
Copies of the check, the fake Forge, and the endorsement on the back by Alec.
All right. and then the corrected disbursement having to pay the money back
Correct.
by the firm. All right. Going on to Mr. Randy. Right here, we've got a disbursement of $9,569.30 on exhibit 327.
Correct.
All right, next page, we have what?
The copy of the check payable to the fake forge and the endorsement by Alec on the back of it.
All right, and then the correction disbursement.
Correct.
All right, and last one for this set is exhibit 328, and we have Morris Mack, Thomas Moore, is that correct?
That's correct.
And whose signature is that right there?
That is Alec's.
And amount to forge of 125,000, is that
Yes.
right?
Incidentally, that's a forged signature for the client. The client confirmed that when we met with them.
Do you recognize that handwriting
It appears to me to be Alec's printing.
on the disbursement sheet?
Yes, sir.
All right, and then we have the fake check right there,
That's correct.
or the fake forward check, and then that's all on that one for right now, is that correct?
Well, it's partial correction. Yeah.
All right. With things like this going on in a lot of cases that Alec had? Fair amount?
Well, we found them in these several cases, and in the scope of all cases, not so much. I mean, we have a ton of volume, so this doesn't represent a large proportion of those, but this was common with them.
And that's my point, is
Yes.
that there's a large volume,
Yes.
and these are sprinkled throughout over years and years and years.
Break it out over a decade or better.
Whenever there's an opportunity, it happens.
Yes.
I'm gonna show you, let me get a couple more documents, Mark.
I'll stand for a moment.
I can't get over how much he has thieved. Oh, head down, shoulders slumped. What's going on, Alec? Isn't his hair different? I had to do a before and after. Like, he is so gray. And I've noticed every single day it's getting redder and redder. So where the hell is he getting this stuff while he's behind bars? Oh, I'm the same as you, Dandy. Yes, I'm the same as you. I don't even know how you would have the balls to do something like this. It's like, what? Deep, I think. This is deeper than we think. It's getting juicy. 100% friend. It's unreal what this guy has done. Not looking very good right now. He came in so cocky when this first started. So I don't know how many people that they're going to vet, I guess, is basically what they're doing. Okay, nuding out, friends.
I'm gonna show you what's been marked as exhibit 329 to your to this proceeding and see if you recognize that.
I do. This is a spreadsheet of the payments that were made to Palmetto State Bank and misappropriated through that method.
All right, you testified earlier that the fake Forge account, the Richard Alexander Murdaugh DBA Forge, started around 2015. Is that right?
That's correct.
But you just uncovered a different mechanism whereby Alec Murdaugh misappropriated money from clients prior to that. Is that correct?
That's correct. Most of these took place in 2011 and 2012.
Okay. And did Alec have some particularly big cases in those years?
He did.
And what were those cases?
So he had Arthur Badger, which was against a UPS truck in Allendale where his wife was killed. And I believe a couple children hurt. There were several beneficiaries in that case. In that same wreck, well, then they had another one with Hakeem Pickney, who in that same wreck had a cousin in the car named Natasha Thomas.
Okay. Let's talk about the Badger case. What was the total settlement in that particular case?
In the Badger case, the total that was apportioned to Arthur Badger was $3.1 million. There was also a companion case, Donna Badger, with a good bit apportioned to it as well. I can't recall the number right here right off the top of my head.
But just for Arthur Badger, it was just one of the clients that Alec had, correct?
Right.
Just for Arthur Badger, what was the attorney fee that he received in that settlement?
He received $1,240,000.
The firm
The firm did.
But that would be ultimately on his books at the end of the year.
It would be credited to him.
$1,260,000, is that right?
$1,240,000.
Is that all the money that Alec received from that particular case once y'all did your review?
That is not.
What else did Alec take?
$1,325,000.
Another $1.325 million, is that right?
That's right.
And how did he go about doing that?
Checks were payable to Palmetto State Bank that were then converted into personal items, payments for bank loans, payments for loans from a conservator account, payments to Johnny Parker, I believe it was, one to his father for paying back personal loans that they had given him.
Okay. And so we've got now what's been marked as Exhibit 329 up on the screen. I'll let the sirens go by. Guess I'll just talk over him. All right, we've got on this one at the top, we have Mr. Arthur Badger, is that right?
That's right.
And we have the date, and we have the amount, which is how much?
$1,360,000. And that is because we returned the PR fee in that case as well, because the PR failed to do their job properly.
Okay. And I'm going to show you what's been marked for this hearing is 330. And is this the disbursement sheet?
Yes, sir.
And down here, we have Palmetto State Bank payment to fund structure per client request. Is that right?
That's right.
And that's the 1.325 million.
That's correct.
And did that go to the client?
No.
I see there's an email right here. Who is that from and to, and what's the date on that? You need me to bring it to you?
So this email is from Russell to Alec. Doesn't look right. There was an email that came from Alec to Russell asking if we could recut the checks in a certain way. Then Russell independently sent an email to Alec, which was forwarded to me and my accounting staff, asking if we could recut the $1.3 million check into 4 different checks.
And did y'all do that?
We did.
Have any reason at all to mistrust what was going on at that time?
No.
All right. So ultimately,
And ultimately, those got broken down into all these payments. This is the payments of how these checks were written and what benefit they went to.
And they were made out to what entity?
Palmetto State Bank.
And then after they were made out to Palmetto State Bank, what happened to them?
They got converted to personal usage for Alec Murdaugh's benefit.
Real quick, I see the spreadsheet says July 2005. I'm going to point you to this disbursement, though. What's the date on that disbursement?
November 2012.
So is that an error that needs to be corrected?
I'm sure that that's an error that needs to be corrected.
I'm gonna bring your spreadsheet. Let's do that real quick. Give me a pen and November 11th, 2012. All right, let's talk about another case. I'm looking now at Exhibit 332, and we go back to your spreadsheet, and we have Natasha Thomas. Do you recognize that?
I do.
All right, and what was the amount on that particular one?
There were two payments. One was for $325,000 even. The other one was $25,245.08.
All right, I'm looking at Exhibit 332. We have down here at the bottom, we have payment, and it says what entity right there
Palmetto State Bank.
for 325.
Yes.
So was a check cut from the trust account for 325?
Yes,
And is that it right there?
that is it.
And did that money go to the client?
No, that money went for Alec's benefit.
All right. Did y'all have to pay that back and make that right for his
We did pay that
misappropriation?
back.
All right.
What you're seeing now is just all the different payments that were made from that money.
Those were converted at the bank into personal use for Alec.
That's correct.
All right, we're looking at the second check for how much was that?
$25,245.08.
All right, and that's made out to what entity?
Palmetto State Bank,
From the client trust account?
correct?
Did that go to the client or did that go somewhere else?
That went to Alec's personal use again.
All right. And did you ultimately have to make that right?
We did.
Last one is Mr. Hakeem, correct?
That's correct.
Is that in a companion case to Ms. Thomas?
It is.
Got two misappropriations, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. Looking at this disbursement sheet, we have right here on the disbursement sheet, what entity is that?
Palmetto State Bank,
For how much?
$309,581.46.
All right, and that's signed by who on this?
Russell Lafitte, conservator.
And is that the check right there?
That is the check.
Made out to what entity?
Palmetto State Bank,
And what year?
December 2011.
Okay, and did that money go to the client?
It did not.
Did you ultimately have to pay that back?
We did.
And then finally, $60,000 for
The PR fee again. We decided to pay the PR fee back.
And that's the PR fee right there for Mr. Lafitte. Is that correct?
That's right.
The one who signed that disbursement sheet.
That's correct.
mentioned Russell Lafitte. Do you have a relation to Russell Lafitte?
Russell Lafitte is my brother-in-law. He's married to my husband's sister.
June 7th, 2021, you came in demanding answers about those Ferris fees, correct?
That's correct.
And that conversation ended because you got a call about his father, correct?
That's correct.
And the inquiry got pushed to the side because of the tragedy of the murder of Maggie and Paul. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And additionally, Alec called you about having to get finances together for a hearing in the boat case later that week. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And that hearing got canceled as a result of the tragedy of the murder of Maggie and Paul.
That's correct.
And ultimately, in July, y'all received an email from Chris Wilson saying the money was in the account. Is that correct?
That's correct.
What did you later find out about whether not all that money was in the account?
We found out after September 3rd that all that money was not in the account. Chris Wilson called us and actually wanted us to pony up the other portion of the money.
And what portion was that?
There's a couple $100,000 that was still missing.
And once, a few months later, your attention got turned back to these matters and you ran that inquiry, then the whole thing started to unravel. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Not further at this time, Your Honor.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor.
You have an idea about how long you plan to be? Right. So we'll take a break now for about 10 minutes.
Ten-minute break. Okay. Let's go over here. So what do you guys think about all this stuff coming out? I think it's like awesome. It is awesome. I got a couple different views now, so I'm just trying to find the best. There we go. There we are. So this is Louis and Anna and their babies. Too funny. Oh, what's going on here? How come it didn't let me do that? There we are. Yeah, I wonder how long this is going to go on. That poor jury. They're sitting in that jury room. Maybe they'll let them out. Oh my goodness. Look at that baby. Oh, is he, Shauna? That's so awesome. Yeah, that's fun. My son says no kids. Oh, come on. So him and the girl he's been with for quite a few years. Yeah, they're both on the same wavelength as far as that goes, it seems. So, yeah. I have to see other babies. Everybody else's babies. Oh, this is bizarre. Why is it zooming in like that? Look at those frickin' claws. What's mom or dad doing? Wonder why it zooms in like that. Maybe the camera just does that. Animals Get Funky book. Oh my goodness. Well, it looks like there's just one in this nest. That's interesting. Make sure I'm not muted out where they go. No. So I can hear them come in. But let's see if I can hear. Let's try and listen. Oh, it's not muted. No sound. Cleaning the nest. Gotta be mom. Yeah, and dad's probably out hunting. Isn't that chick amazing? Like, I don't know. You guys might have a better idea than me, but how long do you think this one has been out of the egg? Give that back. No, you cannot have that. Oh, that's adorable. What the pandas are doing? Sleeping. Does that surprise you, James? Pandas are sound asleep. Animals get funky. Oh my word. Daddy Eagle in the bar with salmon under his wing. Are they always sleeping, the pandas? Yeah, sound asleep. Oh my word. Yeah, sound asleep, curled up together. I don't know where the babies are, if they're curled into that mound or not. So yeah, the place that I'm getting this from, it's in the title up here. And they're the ones that are letting me use this footage. I'm sure anyone can, but I did want to check. And they told me about the extra cameras. So that was really cool. So I've got all of them. And, I'll probably do the same for some of the other streams. Just, I think it's the polite way to go about it. I don't use them very often yet, but still. And I'm sure it's for public consumption. Like there's nothing in there with copyright or... That's what I was saying, James. Just one chick. So I'm pretty sure I can use those other streams, but I will double check. Yeah, just one chick. Oh, what's that? Is that an egg under there that didn't hatch? What is that the baby's sitting on? That might explain some things. Maybe it didn't hatch. So wouldn't the mom kind of kick that out of the nest? I thought. I wonder if they're going to let that jury go. Oh my God, I feel bad for those people. She's just cleaning up her baby, eh? I just love it. Oh, that's exactly, yeah, Alexandria. That's where this comes from, Alexandria. And it's giving us the weather, which is cloudy and rainy. So we were talking about Alexandria earlier, Shauna. I didn't catch that as far as this went, the camera. So don't they usually like get rid of that one egg? Okay. Yeah, Alexandria. Shauna was saying that is a town out in that area. And she said it's not very big. If I understood correctly, anyways. That's funny. 5 miles an hour, the wind. Seriously, it's been higher than this, but at 180 kilometers, it knocked over our wind meter. It knocked it right over. I got stuck at 180 and the thing cratered. It like hit the ground. This area gets a horrible winds like I've never seen in my life. And it comes and goes, but sometimes we can go through long times where there's lots of wind and things are flying, like literally. But, you know, after being here for a while, you know not to put things up and not to do this and not to do that. I've had like literally one section of my upper deck go flying. Like one section came out completely. Yeah, I thought they did something with that, James. Why wouldn't they eat an unhatched egg? I don't know how that works. I don't know how that works. But I did think they got rid of it somehow. She doesn't seem to be really caring for the egg. She's caring for the baby, or she. That's true, James. Yes, absolutely right. If it hatched now, big bro sis would probably eat him, her. Absolutely, that is kind of what happens, right? So, Shauna, this is Alexandria, right? Oh, that baby. It's younger than the ones on the other side. Oh, I'm just in awe. Oh, they're an hour ahead. Yeah, I'm totally confused about that egg. Why is it still there? Yeah. Look at how it pans in. It's the most bizarre thing. I think he's going to lose one of his feathers. Absolutely beautiful. We see eagles out here, but again, we've got a lot of water. But, I mean, you don't get this close. Ever. But you definitely take notice when they're, you know, kind of hovering, when gliding, I guess would be the word. When they're gliding, I mean, the wingspan is amazing. From that other camera, we could see how high up they go. So it's no wonder we don't see them very often. They're at the very top of the canopy. Yeah, this one's amazing. The baby's still got fuzz. Little chick, I guess. They make their nests. They're constantly working on it. That's what I thought, Dandy. They won't continue to sit on it long after the first chick hatches. It's inconvenient. Yeah, I thought it was unusual to see that egg there, but I don't know how long this little guy has been around. He's not that old. Oh, nice. Alexander the Great. He built 24 Alexandrias and one city named after his horse. Isn't that something? Yes. Yes. That'd be an awesome book. 24 Alexandrias and one city named after his horse. Let me see. Bucephalus? Bucephalus? I don't know if I'm saying that right. Yeah, that'd be totally interesting. I think I told you I took a couple of years ago, a year ago, I guess, before I started doing this. I've been doing this just over a year. The winter before. I took 8 courses on Egyptology. It was like awesome. I even got to take one from Harvard, which was kick-ass. And I put that one in a frame. I got 98%. But yeah, so much history. Just love it. He was kind of not so great. Okay, Google says they eat, remove, or bury them if unhatched. Yeah, that's it. Oh, okay. Kandahar, is that right? Yeah, absolutely. I think I was telling you before, like I got getting onto Ancestry. I'm related to John and Priscilla. So John Alden and Priscilla Mullins, they were the original that came over on the Mayflower. So that's basically where it kind of got really interesting for me, because on her side, it goes back to, the royalty is everywhere with her family. So it's really, really interesting. I've got some relatives that are in, oh my goodness, they're buried in those. Yes, I'm related to Sir Francis Drake. I was related to him. I was related just to so many. I would have to go back to Ancestry and learn. But if a person knows like American history, John Alden and Priscilla Mullins were one of the few people that made it alive and made it through that first year in Plymouth. They named it. I guess their house is still there, and I would love to see it. But I would like to go to England because they're in those, what are they, tombs? I've got it on my other computer. I mean, everybody walks by them in the glass, and oh my word, they're in those beautiful spots in England. And some of the castles are still functioning. Some are like done like dinner. They're like, there's just not a lot left of them. But oh my goodness. And I do know some are open to the public. I've had a few that were killed in London where they used to hang them from the London Bridge, I think it was. Yeah, I started following. Oh my God, I got books and books and books. Some beautiful castles, absolutely. These ones were just insanely massive. I'm going to see here. Ancestry. I'll see if I can get some of the names. Okay. I don't know if this will let me do it or not. I think I have it pinned, I'm hoping. Okay. Oh yeah, it popped up. So I haven't worked on this for a while, but let's see here how I can do this. Oh, Court is back in session. Oh, is it? Okay. What are they doing? We'll pop over there anyways, because I don't think it's going to be long. And in the meantime, I just want to I'll figure out through Ancestry, I'll follow it up again. It's this boring thing, but it sounded like there was some movement coming. Do you know the Eldon name by chance? What's his name? Wadsworth, the author. He's a relative, a direct relative. Henry Alden. I don't think I want to. I think I want to go by. I will. Talking to myself now, guys. Sorry about the seal. I honestly thought that it was. I'll give him a couple more minutes. So Captain John Eldon, 1599 to 1684, married Priscilla Mullins, 1602 to 1688. But yeah, we get the Knights of the Templar. We get, I'm going to start, we got Montagues. I think that's how you say it. All these leaves. I can't be leaving these leaves. William Molyneux. Sir William. We had, I've got someone, okay, I don't understand it, but one was, took care of the falcons for one of the Queen Elizabeths. I do believe it was a Queen Elizabeth. Okay, so, and then another one that actually was her carriage. So everywhere the carriage went with the Queen, he went with. Mm. I'm looking. Alexander Standish. Do you know the Standishes? Some's pretty cool because you bring in the witch trials because he was part of that. He was able to escape, but yeah, he's locked up with those women ready to. Miles Standish. I don't know if you know these names. I'll leave it kind of alone until I know more. Did you know any of those names, James? I don't know what happened there. It sounded like they were coming in, but they weren't. Okay. Now they're coming to court. And there we go, guys. I'm going to mute out.
Mr. Griffin?
Good morning, Ms. Secretary.
Good morning.
I want to first just go to June. I want to go to June the 7th when you were up in Alec Murdaugh's office and you were talking to him about the Ferris attorney fee money, correct?
Correct.
And while you were in the midst of this conversation, he received a telephone call informing him that his father was being readmitted back to the hospital, correct?
That was my understanding, yes.
And his father had just gotten out of the hospital either that Saturday or Sunday, right?
I don't know.
Okay, and do you know that he spent the Friday night in the hospital with us?
I don't know.
Do you, well, his father was Randolph Murdaugh, who was one of the principals of that law firm, correct?
I know who his father was, yes.
Was he a principal of the law firm?
He was previously. He wasn't at the time of his death.
Was he beloved by the partners in the law firm?
Yes.
And his father, and when Alec got the phone call that his father was going back into the hospital, and you mentioned that, you know, the belief was that it was terminal.
Correct.
You stopped your work and turned into a friend, right?
That's correct.
Provided him sympathy, correct?
That's correct.
And backed off of what you were doing to allow him to whatever he was going to do with his father. Right?
That's right.
And so when you walked out of the office, things had come to a standstill as to your investigation through Alec directly as to where's the Ferris fee money, right?
That's right.
And Mr. Randolph Murdaugh passed away. Monday was the 7th. He passed away on the 10th, I believe, didn't he?
I'm not sure the date, but that sounds right.
That Thursday, right? And if Alec had stayed out of the office from that Monday when he got a phone call that his dad was going back in the hospital and terminal until his dad passed, and shortly after he passed, I mean, no one would have said a thing in that firm, would they?
I'm not sure if they would have not.
Now, what you were looking at investigating was where is the fee due to the law firm on the Ferris case, right?
That's right.
And that was a case where Alec was associated with Chris Wilson, and they represented plaintiff, I assume, Mr. Ferris or Miss Ferris or the state of Ferris.
Correct.
And they got a excellent result during the case. It was a verdict, a non-jury verdict after a trial in Richland County. You remember that?
I don't know the details of the case.
And that and you were the firm got an expense check but no fee check, and the immediate question went out to Chris Wilson's paralegal, where's the fee for the law firm, correct?
That's right.
And the paralegal said, our bosses got paid, and then that caused you to look into the matter.
That's right.
Okay. Now, and Alec told you, no, the money is still in Chris Wilson's trust account, right?
That's right.
And he said that to you on multiple occasions.
That's right.
And in fact, Chris Wilson sent an email saying the money's in my trust account
He did in July.
in July that was forwarded on to you, right?
That's right.
And I noticed, well, let me back up. Did Alec explain, did he come up with a story to explain, well, the reason the money is in the trust account is because I'm considering whether to structure the fee?
We did discuss that. Yes.
And in that law firm, your law firm that you're an employee of, partners have structured attorney's fees in the past, correct?
They have.
And so the fact that, and just so the record is clear, when we're talking about structuring attorney's fees, it is delaying the payment of the fees through some financial product. Is that correct?
That's right.
And by delaying the payment of the fees through a financial product, if successful, it allows to delay the payment of taxes on that money.
That's correct.
Now, in the times that the fees have been structured in the past, when the payment of the fees have been delayed, who is the beneficiary of the financial product? Is it the partner that brought the fee to the firm, or is it the law firm?
So we've only done it once or twice in the past, and when it was done, it was the beneficiary was the partner, but it was also contributed and figured into our allocation at the fee breakdown at the end of the year.
So there's no, I mean, the fact that there's a structure, the time you did it, when it was disclosed above board, it is, and just use, say, $100,000 fee, for example. I mean, to allocate it to the firm, that partner who delayed receiving $100,000 till sometime in the future would still have to put his 7.5% or her 7.5% into the kitty of the firm.
Right, and that would also be a percentage of the money that he would receive, that'd be taken into account of that.
Well, would it? I mean, if it was $100,000,
It did.
so he got credit on, or she got credit for the $100,000, even though it never went to the firm?
Yes.
Okay. So if a partner,
If a partner did it correctly, it would be recognized and it would be accounted for correctly. The question wasn't whether he was going to structure a fee, it was whether he had received the fee personally.
understand, and he had said he had it and it was at Chris Wilson's office.
That's what he stated.
Now, the spreadsheet and the files that you were asked about, I noticed the Ferris matter wasn't on any of them, correct?
That's right.
And the Ferris matter wasn't on any of them because the Ferris matter, the firm ultimately got paid $792,000, which was what the firm was owed on the Ferris case.
We did.
And after Maggie and Paul's murder, and after Mr. Randolph's death, murder on the 7th, Mr. Murdaugh's death on the 10th, how long of a delay was there before you got in touch with Lee Cope and Lee reached out to Chris Wilson?
There wasn't a delay in me getting in touch with Lee Cope. Lee Cope knew about it. The decision was made to call me off of it. Now Lee would deal with it from there with Chris Wilson.
Okay, so as far as you know, there was no delay. It was just taken over by Lee Cope.
There wasn't a delay on my part. It was taken over by Lee Cope.
And you don't know whether Lee, how long it took Lee Cope to reach out.
You would have to ask Lee.
And so, and you can't testify to that. You would have to ask Lee, right?
Yeah, I don't know.
And then you had talked about a Hirschberger case where there was actually what appeared on paper to be a structured fee, correct?
That's right.
And you're having done one in the past, it did not appear that that the proper procedures were followed so that Alec would have to pay income tax on it,
That's
whether
correct.
it's structured or not.
That's correct.
And his explanation, I think you said that was back in
Late May, early June.
yeah, that check was May 12th, 2021, the Hirschberger.
I can't be sure when the exact conversations were. They were all going on around the same time, but it had been after that check.
Okay. And that, and so the thought there was, and Alec told you that, well, I'm just trying to sort of shelter money from me put in Maggie's name because I'm being a defendant in the voting case.
That's correct.
Now you and your firm, and you've had outside forensic accountants looking at everything, and you don't have any information or evidence or documents that would suggest that any of the Hirschberger fee went into Maggie's name.
I did not pursue that portion of it. We have testimony from Michael Gunn that there was no annuity set up.
Right. And I guess, right. So as far as you can tell Judge Newman here today is that Alec put that money in a fake forge account that was Alec Murdaugh doing business as Forge.
Correct.
And you don't have any information that that money then went into Maggie Murdaugh's investment account, personal account, or any sort of account, right?
I know that it went into his forge account. After that, I don't know how it was used.
And I think you said that that you didn't start back up and looking into the Hirschberger matter until sometime in, I think you said, it did not readdress it until late September.
That's correct.
Okay. And early September, you were sitting in your office and you had a epiphany, or, you know, just a thought. Well, let's just see what how many times his cases have checks going to Forge.
Well, when you're speaking of epiphany, I had started digging through his client list for every fee that he'd brought in. And rather than going one by one, my epiphany was, let me just run a payment ledger on Forge and see what that turns out, rather than digging one by one.
Okay. And what prompted you to do that?
Because I was trying to look to see if there had been any more settlements that had been written to Forge, like this other one with Hirschberger, so that we could account for them and discuss how we were going to handle them at the year end with the bonus distribution.
I see. And at what time of the year do you have to prepare final reports for the
December.
partners? For December? And when do you start working on that?
It depends every year, but usually December.
But in September, you were, I guess, doing your job, trying to see if there were other Hirschberger type structures out there.
That's right.
Okay. And so you ran a report of financial records that were maintained at the law firm, correct?
Correct.
These were electronic records?
Yes.
And you didn't have to order bank statements for anyone. You had them right there on your computer system?
I have mine, yes.
And there's nothing that happened well, let me back up. We've seen checks to Forge, I think you said, going back to 2015.
Correct.
Have those checks been on the firm financial system and maintained them since 2015?
They were. They didn't catch our attention before that.
And there's nothing about the murder of Maggie and Paul that prevented you from accessing that information at any point in time, is there?
No, what prevented me was work and personal obligations to get to that point in time to have the opportunity to look.
And but the information had been at your fingertips. Anything that was done in 2015, it was there. 16, it was there. 17, it was there.
That's right.
And that's why you were able to go back and do the work, and law firm stood up and made these clients whole. Is that right?
That's right.
Now, Do you have the summary exhibit 314 up there?
I do not.
I may have it. Well, I guess I can put it on Mr. Elmo here. It's not my favorite animal, but, well, let me just have you look at this right quick. Can you go through exhibit 314 and there, the grand total is $2,841,512.55 and tell us, just identify anyone on this list that is just straight diversion of fees that were due to the law firm.
Both Hirschbergers were straight diversions of fees that were due.
Is there any other one on here?
Partials of some of the other ones, I can't remember the breakdowns, but I know like at least Mallory or one of those two, some of them should have been firm's fees due to them.
Right. But all the other ones, but the Hirschberger matter, involve proceeds that should have gone to the client, right?
Which your client installed, yes.
Right. And that, well, you investigated it and you came to that conclusion and the law firm came to that conclusion, right?
Yes.
Okay. But as part of the investigation, did you have to interview the clients and ask the client, hey, did you authorize Alec to put this in a fake Forge account?
We did interview the clients, most of them, we met with them. Most of them were very surprised and shocked and stated that they had no idea that they had been stolen from.
And so to establish that the clients didn't authorize Alec to do what he did, I mean, you had to go to the clients
Correct,
and get their response.
correct,
And you accepted their response, rightfully so, correct?
correct.
On this list of 314, is there anyone where you didn't go to the client or the client representative, except perhaps Hirschberger, and say, did you authorize Alec to do this?
I might not have met personally with all of them, but somebody within our firm did.
Right. Okay. Now, Barrett, the second one, Barrett Bulware, said took insurance proceeds. That's exhibit 314. I think you said Alec had power of attorney.
They did.
And was Mr. Bulware alive in 2018?
I don't remember.
And how is it that you know that Alec did not have a permission from Barrett Bulware to keep that money personally, that perhaps Mr. Bulware had owed him some money?
When I believe Ronnie Crosby's the one who spoke with Jarrett Bulware, who is his PR, so that'd be a better suited question for Ronnie than it would be for me.
So we would need Ronnie Crosby and Jarrett Bulware to come in and testify as to what Barrett Bulware may or may not have agreed to do without.
You may have one that he could come in and testify that too, but the rest of these on these lists, people told me that they either did not know about it, it was covered up, or it was forged.
And they would need to come in and tell the
They
court.
would, and they have.
Or they've testified,
They believe they have,
not in this proceeding.
not in this proceeding.
Now, there was another group of cases that involved Palmetto State Bank, is that correct?
That's right.
And your brother-in-law?
That's right.
And again, there's Arthur Badger, Natasha Thomas, Hakeem Pinkney. Do you know if Mr. Lafitte or anyone at the bank was personal representative or conservator for any of these folks?
He was conservator for Natasha Thomas. I believe he was conservator for Hakeem Pinkney. I can't remember the exact circumstance. And he was the conservator for Arthur Badger's wife.
Okay. And Mr. Lafitte, I mean, all of these checks went to Palmetto State Bank, correct?
Correct.
And then from Palmetto State Bank, they were sent out to pay, according to your investigation, expenses that Alec owed. Is that right?
Correct.
And repayment of loans that Alec owed, right?
Correct.
And that Mr. Lafitte was knowledgeable about that, as far as you know, right?
Appeared to be.
Now, I want to go into a little bit more detail on some of these. Let's just go to, I'm going to put it up with Miss Elmo, and it is the Ben Allen Kendall. Well, that's Hirschberg, but let's don't do that. Let's do the next one, Adriana. And let's see if I can do this right. Do you see that one? That's the disbursement sheet.
Yes.
And the recovery amount here is, and it says settlement proceeds to Forge Consulting, and that's $225,000.
Correct.
And that, according to this document, represents what the client should have gotten and didn't get.
Correct.
And then the attorney's fees here said $22,000. Is that the firm got $22,000?
Yes.
Okay. And then this same exhibit, there's a lengthy footnote down here. I guess does this footnote explain what happened?
Yes, it does.
In this footnote, it says there were 3 previous disbursements in this matter. Is that right?
Yes.
And it says the first one occurred on December 13th, 2018, issuing attorney's fees and cost, $19,932.89 to Palmetto State Bank, satisfying loans and et cetera, and other matters. Is that right?
That's correct.
Now, do we know if any of those are fake bills?
They look to be legitimate.
Did you confirm they were legitimate?
Yes.
And how'd you do that?
By looking at the paperwork and observing the paperwork.
Okay. And then here, there was another disbursement on December 20th, 2018. Is that right?
That's right.
And this document referenced some exhibits. There's an exhibit A through F. I don't believe that's attached. I mean, it may be. I don't have it. Did you prepare this footnote?
I don't remember which ones exactly I prepared. I prepared a lot of them, and Chelsea Van prepared a lot of them as well.
So, and most all these have an explanation and a footnote as to what the entire transaction was
That's
about.
right.
Okay. And you didn't do every single one. It was a team effort, I take it.
That's right.
And so people on the team investigated it and then would have to come here and explain exactly what they did and what they learned. And
That's correct. It's also been through forensic audit and also looked at former FBI, and it's been provided to law enforcement who all looked over it as well.
oh, Now, I think you also said that back to June the 7th, that you said that Alec called you and asked for his updated balance in his 401k.
That's right.
And he told you he was putting together some financial records for civil discovery in the voting case. There was a hearing coming up.
Yes.
And that he'd asked you, he'd questioned you previously about the balance in the 401k.
That's right. It's not been the first time.
And the times that he questioned you, was it in context of putting together information for the voting case, or just he was curious?
Putting together information for financials.
Financials in general, or financials in voting case, or you just don't know?
I didn't really ask particulars.
So
The perception was that it's for the voting case. Talk in the office, we knew hearings were coming up. We knew they were looking for his financials.
okay, well, when you said on the 7th he called you about financials, did he reference the voting case?
I believe he did.
Now, do you know what impact or what consequences Alec would have suffered from his partners if he had just, or if you had found that he had diverted the Ferris fee to himself personally, as opposed to putting it in a structure or putting it in the firm? You know.
I think that he probably would have had some bad repercussions for him, because they were adamant that we were not going to be part of having any portion of hiding or diverting any fees.
And the concern was hiding fees from the civil discovery in the voting case.
Yes, at that point in time it was.
And that wasn't, and at that point in time, no one was saying that they thought he was stealing from the firm, but that he was sheltering money from being disclosed.
That was the opinion, yes.
And then it wasn't until September when you ran a report and you saw all these forged checks being deposited in Bank of America account and endorsed by Alec, you'd seen his signature, that you realize there's been something far different going on than what anyone believed. Is that
That's
right?
correct.
And that's what led to his resignation or termination.
Correct.
And that information had been in the books and records of the law firm since 2015.
Correct.
That's them, not me, guys. Yeah, Alec Baldwin. I haven't read that, but
One last question. The information that in part of the investigation where you and members of your staff and the forensic accountants determined that the clients did not authorize any of these transactions? I mean, you have no personal knowledge other than what's been told to you by people working for you or by the clients, right?
I also saw some of the deposits going into his personal Bank of America account statements.
No, I understand that, but whether the clients,
If they had some back deal, I don't know about any of it, no.
right. Any information you have about what the clients told the firm is hearsay, as far as you know.
It's not hearsay if they said it to me.
Okay. Some said it to you.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Very briefly, Your Honor. One thing you know is that the money that you talked about for the fake forge went into an account, Richard Alexander Murdaugh DBA Forge, correct?
Correct.
Is there any possible legitimate explanation for client trust funds to go into that account?
No.
And after you realized that they went into those accounts, did the firm ultimately refund the money to those clients?
Yes.
You mentioned that you actually found in his office some bank statements for that particular account. Is that correct?
That's correct.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as Exhibit 335. Have you take a look at it? Is that consistent with the Richard Alexander Murdaugh DBA fake forge account that you saw?
Yes.
That you have repeated instances of client trust money going into?
Yes.
That there's no possible legitimate explanation for?
That's correct.
You were asked some questions about the manner of your inquiry and that sort of thing. And I want to take you back a little bit further very quickly. Do you remember, is it common for, after the books get cleared at the end of the year, for certain partners to loan money to the firm to handle operating expenses until fees start to come in?
It is. Basically, we wipe out all the cash reserves. So in order to operate for the first couple of months, attorneys will loan money to the firm for operating expenses.
At some point in time prior to all of this, did you become aware of an instance in which Alec Murdaugh had erroneously received a repayment that was actually meant for his brother, Randy?
We did.
All right. And did that happen once, or did the same thing happen twice?
It actually went through twice. The check was written to him erroneously, and within a few days, he brought the check back to my staff and had it recut to him. So the first check that was recut was held for him for about a year. So the replacement check went through immediately, and the first check cleared about a year later. And that's when we discovered that, going back and looking, that I discovered that he was paid erroneously, that it should have been Randolph Murdaugh and not R. Alexander Murdaugh.
So it was one repayment, but he managed to get it twice.
That's right.
How much was that check roughly? Do you recall?
$125,000 roughly.
$125,000. Was he confronted about this when that was discovered?
Yes.
What was his explanation?
His explanation was that it was an accident, that he thought it was due to him and that he didn't know, and that he found the other one later and deposited it too because he thought they were due to him.
And was he required to pay that money back?
Yes.
And after he gave that explanation of, oops, I didn't realize these $225,000 checks were for me, was that matter then forgotten or moved on from?
It was shelved, yes.
It was shelved. Nothing, no repercussions happened at that point in time or anything like
No.
that? Okay, so the money gets paid back and then people moved on, is that right?
That's right.
Okay. You testified before that when the murders happened, that the inquiry, nobody was going to bring that up now in the wake of the murders, the Ferris fees that you had talked to Alec about the morning that Maggie and Paul were killed, correct?
That's right. It's a family-like place. Everybody was concerned for him, his family. We knew we had time to discuss this before the end of the year. And at that point, like we said, we didn't think he was stealing any money from us.
They had no reason at that time to think he was stealing, correct?
That's right.
And so it did get shelved, correct?
That's correct.
All right, and then in July, you got an email, is that correct?
That's right.
And you testified to this before. What did the email say from Chris Wilson's office?
It said that the money was in the account available to us at any time that we would ask.
And then, so at that point, the money seemed like it was there. The money is not missing, and so the matter was shelved. Is that correct?
That's correct.
However, you've testified that things have been going on for a while, and it was months later that triggered you to do that inquiry. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay. Because there have been multiple instances over the years. Is that right?
That's right.
But that has nothing to do, the fact that that might have occurred regardless of at any point in time because of all the things that have been going on. That has nothing to do with the fact that when things were happening in June, they got shelved, and then you found out the money was there and you thought that matter was closed. Is that correct?
That's right. We never knew about the prior. We had no reason to look. We had no complaints from clients. We had nobody saying they were missing money. And this just turned up when we started searching because of the Hirschberger and the other relevant things.
Has there been instances in which Alec used the firm credit card for personal expenses and was required to pay that back?
Yes,
And if the money got paid back, well, then the matter, everybody moved on. Is that right?
that's right.
So there was a history of that.
That's right.
You get the money back in and everybody moves on. Is that
That's
correct?
right. History of trust and brotherhood.
And that's what happened in July with the Ferris fees. Is that correct?
That's right.
You were asked about whether or not you were told in July that the money was in Chris Wilson's trust account. That's what you were told. Is that correct?
Correct.
Have you come to find out, however, that it actually had not been there?
We did.
And you found this check proving it, correct?
That's correct.
The bottom line is that there had been a long history of if the money got paid back, people would move on, correct?
That's right.
Things were continuing to percolate. They got delayed in June because of everything that happened, correct?
Correct.
But you were now curious, and eventually, months later, you look back at that. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And that also was highlighted and sparked by the discovery of the check, proving that he had not been telling the truth the entire time.
Correct.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Anything further? All right, thank you. You may step down.
I'm not sure if they've got,
Well, we're running up on lunchtime. Mr. Waters, what's next?
Well, we can certainly continue with this. We have Annette Griswold, who is Alec's former paralegal, who in large measure will testify to the similar events with Thomas Moore, Hirschberger, and the Ferris fees. Again, I don't want to be cumulative for purposes of this, but she will certainly add to that. We also have available on this particular issue, Michael Gunn, who is the principal in Forge, who of course will testify that he had never had any discussion with Alec about structuring fees, or at least nothing had ever been set up, and that this account is not his,
and that all the money in these various transactions never went to him and that they were diverted. And then we have Chris Wilson as well, who can describe the circumstances of those Ferris fees. All that would be very lengthy, but we have all that available in as much as that's necessary to complete the story for purposes of the in-camera hearing. We do have, though, we have arranged to get additional SLED and other witnesses here related outside of this for the afternoon, if you wish to make use of the jury for that. And also, as it relates to this, and we're also prepared to offer testimony about these particular instances, but we do have a confession of judgment that I would offer to the court at this point in time in the Satterfield case. And again, before the jury, we would have testimony about that, but for purposes of clear convincing evidence, we have this confession of judgment that we would offer for purposes of this hearing as well. In addition, we have his disbarment from the Supreme Court, which also refers to his admissions of financial misconduct, which we believe also are relevant to the court's decision at this point as to whether or not there is clear and convincing evidence established of these various other crimes. And so we would offer those as well to the court for its consideration now. However, we can certainly offer testimony about those aspects as well. I think, Your Honor, if we can get to a decision point on the law firm witnesses, then we can move forward. And again, we have some witnesses related to Satterfield that we could address and try to work that in over the next few days of court time. And then finally, with the boat case as well. And so that would be some of the financial witnesses that we would offer. And then finally, Your Honor, we do have some witnesses from Palmetto State Bank that will talk about the extent of Alec Murdaugh's financial condition at the time the murders happened and the reason why, explaining the reason why all these things were occurring and why they were all coming to a head in June of 2021.
Mr. Griffin.
Your Honor, I think there's more than enough in the record from this witness to establish that this evidence is not admissible under 404B. And I mean, without even getting to whether they can prove it up by clear and convincing evidence. I'm happy to make that argument at any point in time. But if the whole landscape that he just talked about, Your Honor, 403 also includes a component of undue delay. And as he just described, all the financial misdeeds or crimes that he wants to prove up, we're going to be here until end of February, I suspect, or March, because that's adding 2 weeks to this trial.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. And obviously, as I even pointed out with this witness, we're trying to streamline the presentation. Frankly, the extent of misappropriation is very, very broad, and we're trying to focus on just a few areas. And the ones that we're focusing on are the ones that really came out of his mouth within seconds of law enforcement being on the scene, within seconds of the 911 call happening. And that is, of course, the boat case. And what does that mean? But there's two things that are very temporally connected with this particular crime, and that is the confrontation with Ms. Seckinger that morning over the Ferris fees that have been percolating for a while, and then number two is that pending hearing that very week in the boat case, which again, the purpose of that hearing is to, in a specific request for production and interrogatory, to identify all accounts. And again, once you do that, once those accounts are identified, just like Ms. Seckinger was able to do, just like law enforcement was able to do, the state grand jury was able to do, it doesn't take long to figure all that out and then lead to not only what's happened here, his disbarment, but also, I don't have to get into this specifically, but 99 counts for which he's facing possible sentence of life without parole on that alone. And so that kind of consequence that's hanging out there is very much relevant and very timely to what was going on June the 7th in his life. The defense asked the question, can you think of any reason? And all of this going on in his life, which is a stellar series of events like nothing ever seen, is certainly relevant for the jury to consider when they consider a perfect storm that was arriving for this man on June the 7th.
Griffin, the witnesses that are here, Ms. Griswold, Chris Wilson, and Mr. Gunn, confession of judgment and the disbarment. Do you contest the matters which they are here to testify concerning?
It depends on how far they go with their testimony, but I'd certainly, that's predicate for Mr. Gunn to testify. They didn't have an account at Bank of America and those checks were not deposited with us. And I didn't know anything about this. I mean, that we're acceptable to that. And just, without knowing the full scope of what they intend to offer, it's hard to say yes, but that's all. I mean, just like this witness, I mean, she has a lot of information that is, that she learned through investigation. But if we had to try this case, 90% of it she couldn't testify to.
Your Honor, I point out that those witnesses that I mentioned, as well as every single one of those victims, all testified. There is transcripts on that, which the defense has had, which, Your Honor has access to as well. So I don't know that necessarily it needs to all be repeated for Your Honor's determination now, because again, as he just said, those facts have been testified to. It's just a question of the parameters for this particular trial, which again, the state's intent is not to try 100 white-collar cases in the context of this murder case. It's only to explain to the jury enough of what was going on in an unfathomable set of events for a lawyer, what was going on in his life that were all coming to a head on June 7th. I think that's extremely relevant, and we plan to do so in a very expedited and focused fashion.
Your Honor, I would say for purposes of the trial, going forward with the jury, I mean, we're not stipulating to any facts.
Yes, sir. Well,
For purposes of hearing, I'm very candid with the court.
yes, sir. As far as the court's view of things and what the court needs to determine to be convinced that clear and convincing evidence exists, clear and convincing evidence is not proof beyond a reasonable doubt and all that. It says that degree of proof which will give me a firm belief as to the facts sought to be proven. And if those specific facts are not being contested, what the communications with Ms. Griswold that's in the record, with Chris Wilson, there may be, Attorney Wilson, may be some dispute, I don't know. Mr. Gunn, Forge is a well-known consulting firm, and the Bank of America account says Richard A. Murdaugh, sole proprietor, DBA Forge. Confession of judgment, disbarment. I'm happy to sit and hear any and all of the testimony. One of the things that did occur in the Siegel case was the judge who got reversed didn't want to spend time listening and hearing all of the evidence because of the expediency of things. And the court says, although we sympathize with the court's concern about the length and complexity of the trial, we nevertheless conclude that the importance of the evidence, due to the importance of the evidence, it must be presented and the court must receive it. So I am happy to do that without needless presentation of evidence twice, more than once. And now I understand the defense's position, and I'm not seeking any waiver on the question of whether or not this should be admitted or not admitted. I know you each have your arguments on regarding 404 issues, and haven't heard much argument on the race gestae issue, which is equally important, or perhaps more important. But if you are interested in contesting the nature of each one of these witnesses' testimony, if they're here and available, we can hear them. I mean, we can. You indicate that there are some other witnesses on other matters that can occupy the jury for a bit of time this afternoon.
Yes, sir. After our discussion this morning, we got some folks rolling, and after lunch hour, I think we can take us through the end of the day with witnesses that don't relate to this specific issue.
We can go in that direction and then resume with more witnesses later this afternoon, tomorrow morning, tomorrow afternoon. I just don't want the jury to sit and to be in an idle format. To the extent that you all can be in agreement with a path forward, that's best. If you can't, then I make the call.
Your Honor, as I mentioned earlier, I strongly believe that based on what you've heard thus far, it doesn't meet the elements of 404B, and you don't need to get to whether it's been proven up by clear and convincing. I mean, if you rule against us on that, then we have to.
How about race gestae?
Well, the only thing that would come close to res gestae is redress gestae. Tomato, right? And so the only thing that comes close to that is, the encounter on June the 7th by by this witness up there about the Ferris matter. So one matter, it's the Chris Wilson co-counsel fee issue. And that was the only thing he was confronted about in the afternoon before the murders. And
the state has to prove the state of mind of the defendant, not solely what this witness knew at that moment in time, but what the defendant knew that was subject to exposure.
So, Your Honor, in the with regard to the res gestae issue, we had briefed State v. King 334 SC 504, and that is somewhat similar in that it involved thefts for someone stealing money, and there were remote thefts, and there was a theft the night before or close in time to the murders, and the claim was that the murders were done to get money from the victim, and that we had thefts earlier in the day or the day previous, and then number of thefts months and years before.
Did the judge do the 403 analysis, 403, 404 analysis in King?
Well, the trial judge allowed it in. The Supreme Court, Justice Burnett in 1999 overturned Judge Hicks Harwell for admitting the evidence.
Without conducting a 404 analysis, 403 analysis?
Well, I mean, they have a footnote in there.
You have to do what we're doing now.
Yes, sir. But in the case, they said, while the remote thefts may have been minimally relevant to show motive under law, the prejudicial effect of this evidence far outweighed the slight probative value. So the Supreme Court did a 403 analysis, and that's in footnote 5, Your Honor.
Anything else before we break? We'll resume at We'll resume at 2 o'clock at 2:15 with witnesses And we will resume with witnesses in the jury witnesses. And we'll resume with this in-camera hearing involving witnesses later. So be in recess at 2:15.
They're letting them, sorry guys, they're letting them have lunch today. Yay. Okay, so I'm going to set up for a little bit early so we can watch those eagles, maybe check out those pandas. And yeah, what an interesting morning. Oh my God. So I'm sure we're going to get more of the same. It seems to me like his side is having a little bit of trouble right now. Anyways, thank you so much, you guys, for spending the time with me. You guys are so awesome. I have great chat, great mods. You know what? I will see you soon. Bye.